Oh, you know what I love?
Sports.
I love sports.
Sports. When
it comes to
Texas A&M.
Where are you getting this information?
Let me tell you.
Welcome to TexAgs.
TexAgs Live.
I feel like I should be listening to the theme song from the Jeffersons. You know, we're moving on up.
We will develop men. We will graduate players. And we will win championships on the field.
The best way for us to win is to do it together.
He is a guy that has gotten better and better and better. He's just got that dog in him.
It's been special. The 12th man this past week was unbelievable.
And this is a real program. It's not fake. This is a real place. And if you want to be really good at football, this is a really good place to be.
You know, if I'm betting on anybody, it's the Aggies.
Good Friday morning, Bryan College Station. Welcome to the B-Team version of TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers in the Rollo Insurance Studios. I'm Ryan Brauninger. David Nuno's off somewhere kicking soccer balls, I think. Maybe he's not, but I think his kids are. You know, he's just the bus driver to those type of events. So for the next 3 hours, you will be dealing with me, unless this phone rings. And if this phone rings and it says certain names on it, Olin, you're in here by yourself, and Nick's coming in to host the rest of the show. I'm kidding slightly. We are tracking transfer portal movements throughout the day. Big weekend of visitors. If you are one of the 1.2 million people that have viewed our transfer portal tracker thread, then you know what's going down in College Station this week with Mike Elko's football program as they attempt to navigate the treacherous waters of the transfer portal. And with that, I welcome in a velvety, yummy voice all the way from the piney woods of East Texas. Our Heisman Trophy voter, which we'll get into that in a little bit. I may have some differences of opinion on that with Mr. Olin Buchanan. Good morning, OB.
Good morning. I guess it's the bro hour.
The bro hour?
Yeah, with Brauninger and Olin.
I like that.
The bro hour.
We were just talking before the show started about nicknames that have been given to various people throughout this company, oftentimes by Liucci.
Always by Liucci.
So in the intro of the show, we have the 9021 Olin.
Yeah, I've been called that because I wear black T-shirts.
And one of his better ones for you was whenever you had that elbow injury.
Yeah.
He started calling you El Bolin.
Yeah, and when I was worked out at the gym, I always had a towel around my neck, so they called me Neck Rolling.
That's right. Oh, yeah. He's had a bunch of those.
Hey, it's Friday the 13th.
Is it really? I didn't even pay. Why would you even bring that up? It would never
because
even
there was a
came to
guy
mind.
with a hockey mask and a machete chasing me.
On the way to work?
Yeah. But it is Friday the 13th.
Are you morning walks?
I didn't. Now that it's gotten a little bit colder, I'm not getting up as much. But I'm gonna join the new gym when it opens next week.
Oh, the new gym.
Yeah. So I'm gonna get up early and work out there.
I'll be anxiously awaiting.
So it's Friday the 13th, but are we gonna have good luck or bad luck in the transfer portal this week?
Well, I'm sure Mike Elko's hoping for good luck, but you can never. I wouldn't stamp any kind of luck on the transfer portal because as soon as you feel good about one thing, it seemingly changes every 30 minutes.
Maybe if everybody gave $1 every time they got onto that tracker, that portal tracker.
Not a bad idea.
You know, everybody give $1. That'd be $1.2 million, and then we could probably get anybody we want.
Friday the 13th of December in the year 2024, Olin Buchanan had a good idea.
$1.
I just want that on record.
Oh, I had other good ideas.
Name them. Olin will be here with us for the first hour of the show, as always.
Came back to work for the TexAgs.
Oh, that was your good idea?
Was that an idea?
Yeah. It's the Go Hour presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. Maroon never looked so good as it does with Maroon. We would typically be where, Olin, for this segment?
We'd be in the cool zone.
The holistic
planning cool zone where they can help you with your investments.
That's
tax time's coming up. Help you with your taxes.
If you ever want to get into big professional sports investing, it used to be reserved for the ultra wealthy, like people like you. Not anymore. If you're interested in learning more about professional sports investing and to determine if it may be appropriate for you, holistic planning is your ticket. We welcome in McKinley Polanski.
Speaking of the wealthy.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
You been hiding money over there?
No.
Yeah, they're rolling in it over there.
She will be taking your text in the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Aggies gather at the Angry Elephant. Don't forget, you want to interact with the show, 979-693-1150, the Boss Firearms Hotline. We're going on this NASCAR thing. Boss Firearms Hotline, your local experts. They buy used guns, ammo, and accessories. Go to bossfirearms.com to start earning money like a boss today. Earn money like
I wish
Billy
I
Liucci.
earned money like my boss, yeah.
Well, you brought up the transfer portal.
Yeah.
We talk about
You
just
actually
how
did, but okay.
Okay. Semantics. I'm not getting into that this morning. And I was trying to, make a good segue into your article yesterday, how the transfer portal is wild and crazy and it's a circus every day. And you penned a beautiful article.
Was it?
Well, for you.
Okay, thanks for me.
Yeah. But you know what? This ain't a beauty contest.
You know what it is?
Thank God for you, right?
Yeah. I haven't won one of those in, at least a week.
Every time you go home, Irma says.
She says, "Oh, you're beautiful."
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's been a week since you've been home.
Since I've been allowed in the house. No, the whole idea is actually I was kind of remembering that after the Texas game that Torian York was saying, hey, he feels good about the direction of the team. He says, because it used to be a circus.
The title of the article was Elko closes curtains on circus with major culture shift in year one.
I think look, we had to look. We've been talking about the 2022 class, right? And I had a trivia question. There were 4 players from that 2022 A&M class that made on conference this year, and only 2 of them were at A&M. But only 4, and you think that's what's supposed to be the greatest class ever. What happened to it? Why did it so underperform? Why was it? Because there was, misevaluations? Was it because you didn't vet maybe the character of some prospects properly? Was it because you just didn't develop them, that you had no accountability, that, yada, yada, yada? And the answer is probably all that is yes.
Conglomeration of all that.
And I think I get the feeling that under Elko, that there's more vetting and they're more careful about who they're bringing in, and that they're going to develop people. Maybe. But I get the feeling they're doing that.
I responded to a guy on the boards this morning who said that the reason why in the last couple of days that our transfer portal tracker thread has just gotten out of control, and people have thrown their toys out of the bin and up in arms about really nothing. It's very frivolous things that people tend to get very emotionally upset about on the internet. But the comment that I was responding to was talking about how the 2022 class, like you mentioned, has jaded the fan base because they were getting everybody they wanted. They got everybody they wanted in 2022.
Except Kelvin Banks.
Sure.
The guy they needed the most.
But I said, well, if that's the example, if that's true, that everybody has been jaded because of the success in that 2022 recruiting class and everybody views recruiting success through that lens, those are foggy lenses. Because recruiting success is determined by what happens on the field, and that's it.
Exactly.
So I would think that the 2022 class would be more evidence to give the fan base pause about not going overboard in either direction about A&M taking a commitment or losing out on a player. You just don't know. And what you said about Mike Elko and the culture is something that I've started to say in recruiting country when we start examining the transfer portal and who the prospects are that A&M is going to be in on. And they have to answer 2 questions affirmatively.
What are they?
Can you help us win football games?
Okay.
Simple, right? B, are you going to fit with what we're doing here culturally?
Okay.
Can you help us win? Do you fit with our culture? If both of those are answered yes.
So you're not going to sneak out and go down to Prairie View the night before a game.
Well, yeah, I saw that. You did a good job of outlining kind of all the head-scratching decisions that were made by some kids in that class. But go look at the 2023 class, and I think you mentioned this in your articles. That was Torian York's class. They've pulled some really good players out of there. At least it looks like they're going to be really good players and contributors here. And it came with much less shine than the 2022 class did.
True.
And look, I'm pulling for Connor Wigman. I'm glad he found a home at the University of Houston. I wish it would have worked out here. I would have never suspected that his career at Texas A&M would have gone like that.
I'm confounded by it.
But I'm still pulling for the kid. But there's
McKinley's confounded too. She was nodding her agreement.
Oh, okay. You're confounded?
We were Connor founded.
I went to high school with him.
Oh, okay. You're
So,
Bridgeland. Okay, yeah. Yeah, so she knows, like, in high school, he was incredible. Still one of the best quarterbacks I've ever watched in a high school jersey, in a high school atmosphere, without question.
Hey, I saw him play great in an A&M uniform.
Yeah, for sure. And you could tell the talent was there. It just didn't work out. But he's another member of that 2022 class. You're going, what happened at A&M? So it's a conglomeration of all those issues that you talked about.
And sometimes there's just bad luck.
And I think, too, when you look at outgoing players into the portal from Texas A&M, a lot of them have been, okay, like this, he wasn't playing much. You can understand why he wants to go look for more playing time. But when people want to make these definitive statements about, I can't believe this kid's leaving, you don't know the situation with the kid, with the family. Is there something going on off the field here at A&M that he needs to get away from? Also, was the coaching staff honest and say, hey, look, it's going to be tough for you here. We don't mind you staying, but we're going to be very truthful with you and upfront and say, it's going to be tough. And I think, Olin, not to cut you off,
go ahead.
I think they really believe in this current freshman class.
Okay.
I think the coaching staff believes they've got some real players in there.
I wonder if there's some guys, and I have no knowledge of this, I'm just wondering, that went up and said, hey, Coach, I need an NIL deal worth this X amount now. And they said, you know what? You didn't play to that level. And they said, okay, then I'm going to go try to find it somewhere else.
When I host, I script the show. It's very different than David scripts them. I script discussion topics out that are maybe tangent to directly tied to Texas A&M, but you just brought up one of them, so I want to get to it.
So we go on a tangent.
But it's tangential, but it also, like, there's an element of it that I think can come back to Texas A&M because it's a question that I'd be interested to hear an answer from the fan base. 979-693-1150 if you want to answer this. How much are you willing to spend to win a championship? Because, and here's why I ask, the Los Angeles Dodgers spent $700 million on Shohei Ohtani. They won the World Series championship in year one. The New York Mets just spent $765 million on Juan Soto.
I got $14.
Okay. I knew you were coming in with props.
I didn't even know you were hosting.
I know, but when he walked through that door and you saw me, your face lit up. He's like, all right, Bronny's here. I can do my stand-up routine.
All right.
Anyway, so what I'm saying is, the Los Angeles Dodgers spent $700 million on Shohei Ohtani, and they won a World Series in year one. Does that mean that investment's worth it, or do they need more? The New York Mets spent $765 million on Juan Soto. Does Juan Soto winning one championship over the length of his contract, 15 years, make that worth it? Like, clearly, the owner of the New York Mets thinks that type of investment is worth winning a championship for. Now, in college athletics right now, much like Major League Baseball, there's no salary cap. So how much is a championship worth? And then when you're dealing with 18 to 22-year-olds, not 22 to 35-year-olds, is throwing money at the problem, the perceived problem, throwing endless amounts of cash at it, the solution.
No, not for some. It is for if you're 63. By the way, I just turned 63, so if anyone wants to solve my problems by throwing cash at me, please do.
You just whipped out a bunch of money.
$14. That's
more cash than I got on me.
That's my life savings, and I'm willing to give it up for A&M.
But do you understand what I'm? So that the tangent was, you were talking about the money and kids coming asking for more money. Not just kids at A&M; it's across the country, and now with the transfer portal. I'm so fascinated by how these coaches and these NIL collective make decisions on players. How do you determine worth anymore? And Billy has said it on the boards. He's said it on radio. The term that is thrown around like crazy in the current climate is fair market value. That's a phrase we've heard a lot.
Yeah.
But
Who's
sounds like
that?
it sounds like to me that the folks that are using that term in negotiation tactics, the words themselves, and as a normal person would hear them and string them together, have a definition. But what it really means in negotiations apparently is something completely different.
Seems to me you find out how much you got to spend in your collective, and you come up with a budget, and you go directly to the player and say, "This is what we're willing to give you. If it's not good enough, best of luck."
I heard a story, two rival SEC programs. This hasn't had to do anything with A&M, but I heard a story yesterday about a kid arriving at a metropolitan airport to get picked up for a car to go visit a certain SEC school.
Okay.
There were staff members from a SEC rival there and convinced him to get in the car with them, and they drove him to a different campus.
Wow, that's kind of.
Now, again, it's all hearsay. This came from somebody that talked to somebody that knew it happened.
Okay, so the kid was lying in Houston.
This is alleged.
To go to Austin. Somebody from LSU picked him up and took him back to Baton Rouge. All right.
I mean, you're drawing.
Yeah.
It wasn't anybody in the state of Texas.
Okay, so they flew in Atlanta, and they were going to go to Georgia, but somebody up from Auburn picked him up and brought him over
that
to
can
Auburn.
be something like that. It could be something like that.
Or it could be exactly like that.
It's not exactly like that.
Okay, so he flew.
Here we go. But you know what I'm saying? Like, that's kind of.
I just don't think somebody is going to land in Atlanta and somebody from Arkansas is going to drive him all the way back.
If you need.
So I'm trying to think
If you need an example that is directly tied to A&M,
yeah,
the Aggies were ready to get a visit from Kevin Concepcion, the wide receiver at NC State. Good player.
Good player. I saw him play.
I mean, literally at the last minute, Bama blocked it, and now he's in Tuscaloosa this week.
All right.
So, like, everything can be lined up, and it's going one way. But you're not just involved with one person in these recruiting of the portal prospects. There's so many layers of these things now because the agents have been involved.
Yeah.
And what I said Wednesday on Recruiting Country was that what you've done in the transfer portal, and it's slowed down up to this point from last year. And it may be because A&M doesn't have to go out and take 25 players or whatever they did whenever Mike Elko got here. They're going to take less players this cycle, so maybe they're being more selective. But it just feels like in general, as a whole, the transfer portal process has slowed down. We're not seeing a lot of commitments yet from kids in the portal. So when you have what used to be a 2 or 3 year window to recruit high school kids, now you've shrunk it down into a month, where a lot of these kids, some of them you may know from recruiting them in high school and just being around them. Some of them, like Kevin Concepcion, was never on A&M's radar. There's a lot of these kids. Jamari Butler is the defensive end from Nebraska that was in. A&M didn't recruit him in high school. So you're trying to get to know the kid, the family, the inner circle, whoever. Try to figure out what the agent's deal is. You know, how's he being shopped around by folks that aren't on your campus? It's a mess, man. I don't know how it's not even professional football. It's not that. Like, it's not the NFL anymore. Or it's never been the NFL, but people are wanting to compare it to the NFL. It's not that either. Because in the NFL, you sign multi-year contracts.
That's what it's coming to. It's going to come to contract eventually.
How? Somebody's going to have to step in and do it. So, look, we're up against the break. We'll come back. I think we can continue. We got to talk basketball, too. Big game for the Aggies on the hardwood tomorrow in Indianapolis, Indiana, against the Purdue Boilermakers. But a lot more to get to on the Go Hour. Ryan Brauninger, Olin Buchanan. This is TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers.
You're going to blame it on
shame.
Texas?
It's a shame that the YouTube audience can't hear this. Blame It on Texas by Mark Chestnut. There was a time in my life where I don't have any tattoos. And I thought about getting one on the inside of my arm that said, blame it on Texas, don't blame it on me. How stupid would that have been?
I blame everything on you. Hey, Polanski, you got any tattoos?
Hey, you don't have to answer that.
Not even a
I don't.
Not even a blame it on Texas tattoo?
No.
But you know what she does have, I think?
What?
Text messages to the show.
Yeah.
I do.
What you got?
Yes. Okay. Kevin in Austin said, R.C. Slocum said this years ago about recruiting, and it has stuck with me. He said that there's two things that you can't make a mistake on. You can't make a mistake on speed and character. Elko seems to have adopted that philosophy. Kevin in Austin.
I like that. Ryan Brauninger, Olin Buchanan. It's TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studios, and this is the Go Hour presented by Maroon U. OB, before
obviously,
we went
RC wasn't talking about driving down Wellborn at 100 miles an hour or through a parking garage.
I don't think so. Although back then, when RC made the quote, there was probably way less stuff on Wellborn Road where you could drive faster.
That's probably true, yeah.
As fast as College Station has grown. But before the end of the last segment, we talked a little bit about what this could look like going forward. And I can remember hosting TexAgs. It was radio back then in the old studio. And it may have been about a year ago today, maybe a little bit before. I can remember the Elko hiring had just happened. And I started talking about private equity in college sports and ownership in college sports and how it seems crazy to think about, but there's certainly an avenue where we could get there. And I think we're getting there. Where Dave Portnoy, just for an example, is the owner of Michigan football.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much.
Because if you're going to go to this multi-year contract model, I don't see how it can be governed by the NCAA, who's losing what little spine it had left daily. Because every time they make a ruling and somebody doesn't like it, they just go to the courts now, and they get the governing body of college athletics gets overruled.
Yeah, they usually lose in court because usually they've had stupid arguments. Now, they may start winning a few if they want to, because you should be allowed to conduct your business as you see fit, as long as it's within, basic labor laws.
Wait, do you know why? One of the reasons why I thought that private ownership of college sports was coming is because you're starting to ask these wealthy donors to give money to the program, pay players, let's call it what it is. And these wealthy folks don't get wealthy typically by spending money frivolously. If you can start showing these guys some type of return other than the goodwill, the feel-good, emotional tie to winning, if you can start showing them actual returns on this investment monetarily, then maybe they'll be more willing to get into it.
Yeah,
at a much higher rate.
I don't know how a private citizen is going to be able to own the athletic department of a.
I don't know either
of a state university.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Maybe a private,
but that's good. That's a good point. I haven't thought about it through the universities being property of the state essentially. Mm-hmm. Whereas I guess Baylor would be a private.
Baylor,
Rice, but. There's got to be some sort of model coming where they essentially blow up what has been traditionally thought of as college athletics and rewrite it from scratch.
Well, you used to sign a letter of intent, right? And now the letter of intent is going to say, hey, we're going to pay you this much, and you're locked in for 3 years.
Yeah, I have ideas on how to curtail some of this stuff. It'll never happen, and I know how stuff on the internet gets clipped. So what I'm saying is these things that I'm about to pontificate on will never happen. I'm just saying there would be ways to try to kind of get everything more in line and make it more efficient and just take the craziness out of what we're seeing in college sports and the player movement. I'm completely 1,000% okay with NIL and college-age kids making as much money as they want.
I want everybody to make money.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And
instead of a few vice this and vice that and provost this and provost that, and everybody's getting rich except the people making, doing all the work.
Right. And I want the kids to be able to tap into their financial potential and make as much money as possible. I think if you want to keep kids in one spot and you want to keep the transfer portal at bay, or at least to a minimum, you let them accrue NIL money, and they don't get it until day one of their third year on campus, or you have 30 months, and in 30 months you can capitalize on whatever you've accrued.
Yeah, I think that'd be illegal.
Again, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm coming up with ways that could curtail it.
Yeah.
That's what I said off the jump, is that I'm not saying these things are feasible. But accrue as much money as you want, you get it 30 months after you arrive on campus. And if you transfer, the clock starts over. But the argument would be, well, these coaches leave, they go to other places, you don't keep them from making money.
Well, they're saying Ryan Brauninger gets paid for doing each 2 weeks for doing the job.
Sure.
He doesn't have to wait 3 years to get paid.
I know. And I'd be accruing money, but you need it now. I get it. I understand why there's faults in that argument. I'm just looking for solutions.
The solution is to put me in charge, make me king. I can't be president. I can't be manager. I have to be king, where what I say goes. And when they do that, then this stuff is going to get cleaned up.
If you were king, how many times would you eat at 1775 barbecue?
Well, probably Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, because that's when they're open.
But if you're a king, you make them cook for you.
Yeah, but I'm being the good king. I'm not going to make them work when they don't want to work. They're open on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Those are maybe my 3 favorite days of the week. And Sunday to rest. I got to rest up after eating all that amazing barbecue.
When we come back,
queso mac and cheese.
When we come back, Aggies, Boilermakers tomorrow on the hardwood. We'll talk about that on the other side of the break. You're listening to TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers.
What's up, TexAgs? This commercial break is brought to you by my good friends over at Aggieland Chevrolet, the official automotive sponsor of TexAgs.com and me, Billy Liucci. Greg Gunn is the proud owner of Aggieland Chevrolet and invites you to visit the dealership to experience true Aggie hospitality. From their friendly staff to the experienced service team, Aggieland Chevrolet is TexAgs approved. Check out the dealership off of Highway 6 in Bryan, or go to AggielandChevrolet.com and tell them Billy Liucci sent you by.
Bottom of the 8 o'clock hour on TexAgs Live. I'm Ryan Brauninger, sitting in the host chair today. Thank you for joining our B-Team broadcast of the program. Inside the Rollo Insurance Studio, that's Olin Buchanan.
I am.
We're going to talk hardwood now.
Let's do it.
Aggies and Boilermakers from Indianapolis, not West Lafayette. Tomorrow, Aggies coming in, playing better basketball.
Playing really good on the defensive end.
And they're going to need to because they're facing a Purdue team with some really good. They're 8-2 overall, wins over Alabama, Ole Miss, and Maryland. 2 losses to Penn State and Marquette. Olin, these Boilermakers shoot 40.8% from 3, 49.8% from the field.
Yeah, so that's going to test that A&M defense because Buzz's philosophy is to make them shoot from the 3-point line. Now contested.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about the numbers. The I guess like analytics shows it. Obviously that's the least percentage wise, the lowest percentage shot. So that makes sense, right? Except when you got a team that can really hit out there.
I was listening to. I'm actually going to give Luke Evangelist some props. He was talking about the game. Was it yesterday, or maybe it was Matthew Dawson that had all the stats?
That's probably Luke. Was it?
We're talking about offensive efficiency ratings and how Purdue's in the top 15 in a lot of these categories. Yeah. This is, to me, A&M's without a question, A&M's biggest test on their defensive end.
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, here's a team that played for the national championship last year. Look, I know the 7-4 guy is in the NBA now. I think he's in Memphis, but they're really good. Obviously,
3 players averaging in double figures: Trey Kaufman-Wren, Fletcher Lawyer. Braden Smith, I also believe, leads the team in minutes and assists by a lot. 88 assists on the season already.
8.8 assists.
That's crazy. So, again, this is a well-established Big Ten power now, I would call Purdue. A lot of people give them grief because up until last year, they really struggled once they got to the tournament, being a higher-seeded team. But what is, in your opinion, your expert basketball opinion, I should say, what's A&M's path to win this game?
Play strong defense, and you're going to have to shoot a little bit better than you've been shooting.
I think I want to see if A&M can drag Purdue in the mud with them.
They're going to try. They're going to do what A&M has to do. What they do well. They just got to do it a little bit better. And what I'm saying is, continue to play good defense. Texas Tech actually shot a pretty good percentage. But you compensated by forcing 18 turnovers and only allowing them to take 51 shots.
And A&M didn't rebound all that great against Tech.
So do what you do best. Get those offensive rebounds. Force some turnovers. Get to the free throw line. But I think you're going to have to shoot from the perimeter better than you have of late.
And I think they've got to be better in possession. I think, again, there's people driving around that really know basketball that are going to go, this guy's an idiot. Because I drive around and I know baseball and I hear other people talk about baseball. I'm like, that's not right. So I'm openly saying I could be incorrect, but it feels like the ball gets stuck on the offensive end too much with just non-intentful dribbling. And they get late in the shot clock and it ends up being Manny or Zurich or Wade trying to dribble and create a shot. And I just feel like the ball gets stuck on one person. I think their efficiency has to be good on offense. Obviously, I want those type of guys taking the most shots. I want Wade shooting more than everybody, but I also would like how clean of looks can you get Wade? We know Wade can create his own, but how clean can you get him against a really good Purdue team?
Well, hopefully they can create some things that if you are having to go one-on-one, that you can draw the foul if you don't make the shot, or at least dish off to somebody. Look, I think somebody like Henry Coleman might be really key in that game because they're going to come out and they're going to play. If you watch A&M, A&M is a guard-oriented team. As well, they should be with Wade Taylor. And Phelps is explosive. He needs to cut down his turnovers, but he only had 2 in the last game, though. But here I had said Henry. Here's the deal: you play a team like that, one player is not going to carry you. It's going to have to be now. Wade may go out and score 30 points. And that wouldn't surprise me because he certainly has that capability. But you're going to have everybody against this opponent like this playing well. So even if Wade scores 30, Henry or somebody's going to have to be 10, 12, and a lot of rebounds. And, everybody's going to have to do their role really well. But this is the game. if you can get this one, this is like you've had a tough schedule, but this is like the crown jewel of that one. And
yeah, and we're going to talk about what the schedule has been and what the schedule will be now with an SEC that looks like it's as good as it's ever been, and the depth of the league has been really shining through, I think, early in the season. But you look at this Purdue team. I mentioned Trey Kaufman-Renn, and this may be a better question for a guy like Luke, who's kind of studied all of A&M's opponents. And I'll ask John Pugliese, who's going to join us here in the 9 o'clock hour, this same question. But Trey Kaufman-Renn might be the best player that the Aggies have played against this year, averaging 18 and almost 19 and 6 so far this year through 10 games. They are going to have to limit his opportunities. I don't think that's any question.
They're going to have to play him well. I mean, you don't want him to go crazy on you, but you understand that he's going to score. 6'9" guy, so I guess Earl Payne's going to be on him. And they'll probably mix it up and, try to even sometimes maybe put a smaller guy on him and see if he can push him out. Who'd probably do a good job on him is Solomon Washington.
Yeah, so athletic.
He plays.
He can play everywhere.
He plays taller than he is.
There's some of these 3-point percentage numbers are Fletcher Lawyer over 52%, Braden Smith, Miles Colvin north of 40%. They got some real shooters here. Like again, it's kind of the story is how does A&M match up on the defensive end? I want A&M to play an ugly game. You mentioned the free throws and the Aggies getting to the free throw line. Me and my baseball brain, I always come back to this because of how much of a weapon the free throws have been for A&M basketball teams under Buzz Williams. I look at them like the walks for the A&M baseball team. It's a weapon. It's part of their offensive identity.
Absolutely. And I would suspect, I don't know this for a fact, but because I haven't been watching Purdue all the time, right? And I'm not diving into the stats like Luke probably does, but just because they're in the Big Ten, I'm assuming that A&M plays at a faster pace than they do. So, see what you can do to get them out of their game, out of their tempo and into yours.
I also like the fact that it's not on campus.
Yeah.
An NBA arena I think it feels a little bit further away than maybe, is it Mackey Arena in West Lafayette? Every time I see a game there, it looks like the students and the fans are right on top. Kind of like Gallagher-Iba at Oklahoma State. It feels like they're right on top of it. So you may get a little bit of respite of.
I've actually covered a game there.
At Gallagher-Iba?
No.
At Mackey?
At Purdue, yeah. I've forgotten that it was called Mackey.
So maybe you get a little bit of respite there from in terms of a home court advantage. Obviously, it's going to be very heavy Purdue fans in Indianapolis, but
yeah, I think A&M's used to that.
So, in your opinion,
I think Rutgers in Vegas and even Creighton was more represented in the crowd, and then Texas Tech definitely was.
Yeah, and Fort Worth.
Of course, Purdue will.
All right, so we're going to go to an early break here. When we come back, we're going to just kind of wrap up the discussion on basketball with what does the result mean for this club either way? If a win, what does it mean? A loss, what does it mean? We're going to wrap up the Go Hour with Olin Buchanan. On the other side of this final 8 o'clock hour break, you're listening to TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. All right, closing out the 8 o'clock hour, TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. I forgot a couple of things, as I often do when I'm in the host chair. That's why we call it the B team. But we're going to go over to Ms. Kay Naegeli, okay, for Around Aggieland, presented by Norman G. State Bank. Rock solid banking. Visit normangstatebank.com. Steve's daughter, take it away.
Steve's daughter. That is what I'd like to be known as. So we are going to start off with some football. We had a couple all-SEC nods. First team, Nick Scorton, in case you also missed it, he declared for the NFL draft earlier this week. But he was also named to the Walter Camp All-America second team. That was announced just last night. Moving over to the other all-SEC nods, second team was running back Le'Veon Moss and corner Will Lee. Third team was Trey Zune, and then Shamar Stewart. He also declared for the NFL draft this week as well. And then freshman team. How about Tyler White getting the nod?
I thought he should have been first team all-conference regardless.
Probably. He's had an excellent year, so great to see. He is a redshirt freshman, but still qualified for that, so that's awesome. And then A&M Athletics is also set to graduate 47 student athletes. Their ceremonies are at Reed Arena on December 12th and 13th, so congrats to all those athletes. And then in the transfer portal, A&M has landed 2 commitments so far as that opened on Monday. UAB quarterback Jacob Zeno, and then Micah Riley is a tight end out of Auburn. I'm sure we'll have a lot more information on them later. And then just to keep you all up to date and on our site, the Aggies have 19 transfer departures. We have a list of all those names on our site. Like I said, Bronny's running a great thread there, so make sure to check that out. Moving over the men's basketball front, A&M number 17 A&M looks to continue its non-conference win streak. They will be playing Purdue tomorrow. They are ranked 11th in the country. They are trying to get that win streak to 5. That is a neutral site game. That is an 11 a.m. tip in Indianapolis. Should be a fun one to watch. On the women's basketball front, they are just 5-5 with 2 non-conference games remaining. The next being Texas Southern, that will be played on Monday night at Reed Arena at 7 p.m. SEC play just right around the corner for them as they will begin conference play with Tennessee on January 2nd. And last but not least, I want to talk about this program because they are doing excellent stuff right now. Aggie volleyball is in the Sweet 16. They play tonight. They will take on 2-seed Wisconsin. That is on ESPNU if you want to watch at 6 p.m. So they are actually in Lincoln, Nebraska, and they are playing Wisconsin. You don't know anything about those volleyball rivalries? They run deep in Nebraska and Wisconsin. So A&M could potentially have a lot of Nebraska fans cheering for them against Wisconsin. Could be an advantage there. It'll be interesting. Also want to note there were 5 SEC teams remaining in the Sweet 16. Kentucky beat Missouri last night. Those games have already started, but it was Missouri, Kentucky, Texas A&M, and Florida were all in the Sweet 16. And if the Aggies are able to take down the Badgers, it would be the first time since 2001 A&M will appear in Elite 8, and they would face the winner of Nebraska-Dayton on Sunday at 2 p.m. So
Jamie Morrison has been awesome and got the arrow pointed north, I would say, Olin, for the volleyball.
Well, quite literally, they're going to Nebraska, but the trajectory of the program as well.
North.
All right, we got it. Thank you, Kay. We got a bank on it, Olin, presented by Vera Bank, authentic relationship banking built for life. Go see Joel Jackson and the team. Learn more at verabank.com. What you banking on this weekend?
I'm banking on that. I'm banking on Wade Taylor. I'm banking on Wade Taylor.
That's a good bank to go to.
Yeah, I'm going to the bank of Wade Taylor Citizens Bank. Big games, big players show up, and I'm banking on a big game from Wade Taylor. He'll probably even bank in a few. I'm going.
If I had to bank on something I feel good about, Anderson Garcia leads the game in rebounds tomorrow. Yeah. But I'll flip the script a little bit, and I'll go. I think I'll bank on Texas A&M. By the time Monday's show ends, TexAgs Live, I think Texas A&M will have landed 3 commitments out of transfer. Oh, man,
I want to hear that. I like to hear that.
So I just think that they're in a good spot for a lot of these kids. Big weekend full of visitors.
Hope one of them's a receiver.
They're getting close on a couple to getting them over the line. We come back, more basketball talk. John Pugliese, longtime Texas A&M basketball correspondent, TexAgs correspondent, will join us to talk about Aggies and Boilermakers tomorrow. Bottom of the 8 o'clock hour, fighting Texas Aggie baseball coach. Bottom of the 9 o'clock hour.
I was going to say,
fighting Texas Aggie baseball coach Michael Earley joins the show today to review the fall. Preview the spring.
So Early was actually late.
And 10 o'clock, Billy Liucci joins the show. A lot more to get to on the Friday edition of TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We're rolling right along on a Friday morning. Thanks for joining the show. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Inside the Rollo Insurance Studios, I'm Ryan Brauninger filling in for David. I think Nick's in the host chair maybe on Monday. We'll see what happens, Nick. I might can do it if you need me to. It'll depend on the transfer portal weekend, but David will for sure be out. So it'll be either Nick or I here on Monday morning. Let's go out to the Boss Firearms Hotline. Talk to great friend of the program, Mr. John Pugliese, TexAgs basketball correspondent. Pugs, what's up, man?
Bronny, it's been a minute.
It's been a while. And I'm gonna be honest with you, Pugs. I'm gonna try to squeeze some extra time out of you in this segment because I have an open segment, and we actually have a kid here that covers basketball for us, but he's got a weird mustache, and I don't want him to have to come on air for the public to see his face if I don't have to. So I'm gonna squeeze some extra time out of you if you don't mind here.
No, I always appreciate that.
All right, man. So let's start with this. Where are you at on this A&M club? I'm running off a few wins in a row here. An important victory over Texas Tech, I thought, and a pretty rowdy atmosphere in Fort Worth. What have you seen over the last 2 weeks from Buzz Williams' bunch that's kind of got you maybe bullish on the Aggies more so than you were to start the year?
Yeah, I think a lot comes down to the their ability to control the game, figuring out rotations. Buzz's best teams, they play their best basketball come second half SEC play, come conference tournament. That's just like how things work for Buzz, and that's how they've always worked, right? Role definition is really important for him. And when you've got three guys transferring in with the portal and how those things work, I think for Buzz, he's really got to figure out, okay, where do these guys fit? What's my best combination? Who's holding what role? And I think that's what we're trying to see, right? With Phelps, Payne, with Wilcher, like what can these guys do? Who do they play best with? We already know the guys who were returning. Hey, they fit here. You got Solo, you got Garcia, you got Coleman. Okay, what can we do? Okay, we add Payne. How are we going to play those four guys together? What are we going to get out of them? And then you've got a ball-dominant guy like Phelps, who you're putting with a ball-dominant point guard like Wade Taylor, and you're saying, okay, how are we going to play these two guys together, right? Because it's not Boots Radford anymore and Wade Taylor. Now it's Wade and another guy who really needs the ball in his hands. So I think we're trying to see some role definition. I think that's where you're seeing the success here recently. And, throw away the UCF game, first game of the year, throw that away. You lost to one of the top teams in the country in Oregon, who I actually got to see out here in Los Angeles a couple of weeks ago against USC, right? So, these are teams who the Aggies are playing well with, and Buzz is trying to figure out, okay, who do I play with who, right? And I think that's where, the chess pieces come into play and how Buzz navigates minutes and the roster.
So if I'm reading this correctly, and I could be wrong, Pugs, in your opinion, you think that the ball will start moving more efficiently on the offensive end as this thing goes? In other words, this kind of where it gets stuck on a lot of dribbles for one player at the top of the key or on the wing, do you think that kind of works itself out, or will you always have elements of that because you have shot takers and guys that can get off their own shot in Wade Taylor, Zoo Phelps, Manny Obaski, or do you think it kind of gets more efficient?
I've been maybe considered a hater on the offensive end for the last couple of years. I honestly, I think this is the way Buzz wants his teams to play. It's not the way I would love to see this team play. But the middle third ball screens, the kind of stagnant, hey, we're gonna play off this one guy. I think that's what you're going to see out of this team. I think where we're going to see some maturation and we're going to see some adjustments is the minutes and how they get thrown out in the front court specifically. If you could get, and this is my big point with A&M, and I think where I think this team can really be elite. If you can get Payne, Solo, Anderson Garcia, and Coleman 20 or 30 points and 20-plus rebounds a night between the four of them, you win most games, right? And that's actually what you're seeing. If you look at their averages, that's what you're seeing. You're seeing 20 or 30 points a night, 20-plus rebounds. If you can get that out of those four guys in the front court, you win. The difference for me is going to be the combination of Phelps and Wade Taylor. Like, Wade and Phelps are taking about the same number of shots. This might be crazy for Aggie fans who are over watching kind of the pound the ball at the top of the key off of a stagnant ball screen. But give me Wade Taylor shooting 15 to 18 shots a night. Right now he's about at 12, and keep Phelps at about 12. And let your front court go get the ball off the glass. Let your front court get baskets in transition. Let your front court get maybe the dunks off of kind of that once the point guard beats, or the guard beats the first guy off the dribble and you got a little dump down. Let them get those points, and that's what Solo and Garcia and Henry Coleman did really well last year. Addition of Payne. You're going to see the ball in these guards' hands. I'd like to see Wade get some more shots out of it and let the other guys get it where they get it. I don't think you're going to see a whole lot different offense, but I would like to see tempo pushed a little bit more, considering you have a guy in Phelps who at SMU really thrived in that kind of give me the ball off the glass and let's push the tempo.
On the other end of the floor, I think is where we've seen A&M play its best basketball. What have you liked about the Aggies so far defensively, John? And then as we start looking ahead to this matchup tomorrow, how do you feel like they can have some success on the defensive end against the Purdue team that's shooting over 40% from three?
Yeah, I mean, good luck against Purdue, slowing them down, keeping them out of the paint. Matt Painter is one of the best coaches in the country. This was not just a Zach Edey show. Although he was National Player of the Year, this team with the way their guards play and how they do things is just different. And Matt Painter has a lot to do with that. But what we've seen defensively, and this has been a heel of A&M defenses, is how many times they have to multiply rotate, and in previous years. So when they get beat off the dribble, in the way that A&M plays defense, in the way that they rotate, if they get beat off the dribble, it becomes a problem for them when they have to scramble, and when they have to scramble after multiple passes. Some defenses are set up for that, right? If you push the offense to a certain side of the floor or to the baseline or the middle, however you want to look at it, you have some built-in help. But A&M actually helps with secondary defenders in different ways than most teams are taught. So if they have to scramble multiple times in the same possession, they really get hurt, and that comes off of downhill drives by the offense. This team this year, outside of Oregon, really hasn't gotten beat off the bounce the way that I think they have in previous years. I think that's a testament to just how good they are defensively, how much time they spend on it, how tough they are, and also that they have some interior help and some switchable guys the way that they haven't in previous years with the way they've played some bigs. So I love this team defensively. It always makes me nervous when they get beat off the bounce, especially early in shot clocks, because that's a long time to scramble. It's a long time to have to react. But they're imposing their will on teams in ways that I haven't necessarily seen them do. I think it says a lot to do with the returners and how much these guys understand what Buzz and his staff is trying to do on the defensive end.
For the Boilermakers, Trey Kaufman-Wren, I mean, they got a lot of really good experienced players, but Kaufman-Wren is off to a fantastic start. John, over almost 60% field goal percentage. He's averaging over 18 points a game, over 6 rebounds a game, about 30 minutes in each contest. How would you defend him? Is this the best front court player that A&M has seen? And when will they see one that's been as good as Kaufman-Wren going forward? And how would you defend him?
I mean, I think you got to help with a lot of. If you look at what some teams, Creighton's big guy, Carl Brennan, who's an All-American, right, and returned for his 12th year of college, and just terrific. Son one, just does all these things, right? Well, when teams have beaten Creighton, what they've done is they've overhelped with guys on the weak side. So they've really planted at somebody behind behind Kalkbrenner, and then they've fronted him, they've three-quartered him, and they've made it really difficult for him to get any entries. So what they end up doing is they end up sending a lot of ball screens, and then there's really nowhere for these guys to go. Purdue has a different way of attacking with bigs, and I think it says a lot about the fact that you see the best or one of the best bigs every single year coming out of that program. So I think it's going to be difficult to slow them down just with stationary defenders or with helping with secondary guys. But I think where you really can do some work and what I think is going to be a really important piece is, can the guards of A&M put enough pressure on the guards at Purdue to make it difficult for them to find those pockets where they can easily enter, into the post, where they can find the roll guy in an easy way, where, they don't have to overhelp because the ball pressure is so tremendous and they've got hands flying and they're all over the place. Against these teams, what kind of pressure can you put on their guards? What can you make them do? How do you make them slow down or speed them up in some cases? I think this is probably the best big that you'll see outside of
Janai Broom.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe. There's, the SEC is pretty darn good. But that's probably the next best big you're going to see. And also, there's this idea of what's a big, the low post guy who, shoots 60% from the field. That's different than a lot of these guys that you're going to see in the SEC, right? Kentucky's got a lot of stretch guys. Those are big, but they're stretch, right? Tennessee's got some stretch guys. So we'll see what happens, as this schedule kind of navigates. But I think this is a big test for them. I'm really excited to see, and I think this is a huge game for Payne. This is why you come to A&M. This is why you leave, Minnesota to come to a high major program like this. It's different. And this could be a coming out party for him in a way that we haven't seen, a big have in recent years.
How does your basketball coaching brain kind of quantify what A&M does traditionally under Buzz Williams to get to the foul line? And I said it in the first hour with Olin, John, that I think like a baseball guy, and I view A&M's ability to get to the foul line in basketball very similarly to how they walk in baseball. It's not glamorous. It's actually kind of boring, but it's a major factor for what they do. In your coaching brain, if you're going to be coaching against a team that does that, do you tell your team, or is it kind of like if I tell them, then a thing can become a thing? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think your analogy is pretty spot on. The way I think about free throws is it's death by 1,000 paper cuts. It's you're attacking your defender so much so that the perimeter guys pick up a couple fouls because you're really ripping the ball hard off of the catch and you're getting to the baseline early, and so they've got to use their hands, and that's foul number one, right? And then you get a run out, and they've got to slow you down after a kick ahead, and they foul off of a kick ahead. That's foul number two. Well, all of a sudden you're 18. You're a minute and a half into the game, and they've already picked up a couple fouls. Watch for how quickly Purdue guards without fouling, especially early in the half. The other side is obviously you get the ball inside and you're attacking through paint touches, right? A&M doesn't do that as often. That's obviously another way you can do it, though. But it's like, to your baseball analogy and to taking a lot of walks, it's seeing a lot of pitches, right? It's attacking in different spots, giving them some things that they might not necessarily have seen on film or on the scouting report, attacking in those ways. Most coaches have, 5 to 10 plays that they haven't shown before, they haven't used, or for specific opponents, right? Those oftentimes are where we pick up our fouls. It's like goal line, your goal line package on offense, right? You go in, you got these things. Like, that is what we have in basketball, is we've got a handful of plays that we know are going to work against this team, where they're going to get to the line or we're going to get an open shot. That's how you kind of navigate it as a coach, in basketball compared to maybe some other sports. But it's about This is very much an X's and O's piece. And how aggressive are you at getting 2 feet in the paint? Get 2 feet in the paint, more than likely you get a basket, you get an open shot, or you get a foul. We want to give ourselves as many of those opportunities as we possibly can.
John, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm looking at this game and these rosters and saying A&M's the more athletic club. That doesn't mean they're the better basketball team. It doesn't mean that they're going to win the game. But I'm looking athlete for athlete, and I like what A&M's got against, I think Solomon Washington can play Trey Kaufman-Renn. Like, I just think athlete for athlete, the Aggies are superior across that front. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the beauty of Purdue basketball, right? That's like he doesn't need the best athlete. Matt Perry doesn't need the best athletes to win games. But you're definitely right, Bronny. Like, this is a team in A&M that when they play against other high major teams now, they are just as athletic, if not more athletic than many of them. That hasn't been the case top to bottom with the Aggies in recent years, and it is now. And I think that says a lot about what they've been able to do with the transfer portal. I think that says a lot about the guys that they've been able to keep around, right? Like, we haven't really lost guys that we've brought to the roster the way that other programs have. And when you've got a guy who's not getting a lot of minutes like Manny Obaseki, and who's one of the top athletes probably in the SEC, he doesn't get a lot of minutes. You're like, okay, we've got a wealth of athleticism here that can really do some things. Not to mention one of the best point guards in college basketball, who I think needs to do a little bit more and be a little bit more selfish than he's being. I want to see this guy really put it on, these Purdue guards who are widely regarded in the Big Ten and across the country.
What is A&M's path to victory? We'll let you get out here on that, John.
I think that this is going to have to be a high-scoring game for A&M. I think, while I say 20 to 30 points out of the front court, 4 guys, it might need to be 25 to 35. You're going to need a really big game out of one of those front court guys. That's really important. And to be honest, I think Wade Taylor needs to go off. Like, I think Wade needs to have one of those games that's like, oh yeah, that's one of the best guards in the country. He's superhuman at times. I want to see him taking more shots. And a bench guy to come up big. We've got to start shooting this. We've got to find somebody who can knock down some perimeter shots the way that Boots was able to support last year. So I think there's some pieces to it, but I like this matchup. I think it's a great test for A&M. And quite frankly, Bronny, on a Friday morning, I'm just thankful to be talking to y'all.
Pugs, you're the man, dude. I appreciate your time.
Appreciate it, Brian. Thank you.
Yeah, that's TexAgs basketball correspondent John Pugliese. When we come back, we'll continue the talk. Aggies Boilermakers tomorrow. Get Luke Evangelist in here to go over some of these numbers, where A&M can have some success and where the Aggies may be at a disadvantage against this Purdue team. A lot more basketball to get to. Bottom of the hour, we're going to switch it to baseball. Texas A&M baseball coach Michael Earley joins us before Billy in the 10 o'clock hour. You're listening to TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. All right, real quick segment here with Mr. Luke Evangelist. I don't even know what we call you. Are you our basketball analyst? Nick, turn your mic on, Nick. Can I get your title for Luke Evangelist?
TexAgs. Here's Richard. Nerd.
TexAgs nerd.
The TexAgs basketball.
TexAgs basketball analyst and Pick'em and Rip'em co-host. There you go.
Co-host, because Matthew Dawson is the star of that show. Luke?
I'm the.
We're going to talk. We'll talk a little bit of basketball because you did have some good numbers on this matchup tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. in Indianapolis against Purdue. Aggies coming in riding a little bit of a heater. Just based off the numbers and what you've gotten to know about Purdue, where can they cause A&M issues?
Let's just start it off with thank you for complimenting my mustache at the beginning of last segment. That was great. But the thing with Purdue is A&M has experience playing against really great offenses. They played a top 25 Ohio State offense, held them to their lowest point total of the year. They've played a top 15 Texas Tech offense, held them to their lowest point total of the year. But Purdue is a different offense because they're wildly efficient. In their offense, they're like 127th in the country in scoring. But when you look at all the shooting metrics, they're top 20. So this is going to be easily A&M's toughest test. And so if A&M wants to have success, they're going to need to guard the three-point line to the best they've ever guarded it. Purdue is 7th in the country in three-point shooting. All 5 of their best players shoot better than 42% from 3. A&M doesn't have a single player shooting better than 36%. So on the defensive end, A&M needs to guard the 3. On the offensive end, you're going to need a lot of what you saw against Texas Tech. You need someone else to step up. It's been Jace Carter. Earlier in the year, it was Henry Coleman. You've seen spurts of Pharrell Payne go for 10. Solomon Washington has scored 34 points in his last 4 games after having 24 in his first 6. So you need someone else to step up because it's been a lot of Wade Taylor and Zurich Phelps. And if you can get a 20-plus point outing from either of them, you're going to be in good shape.
I thought it was interesting that John Pugliese thought that A&M needed to score the ball to give themselves when I asked him what the path to win for the Aggies was. And I'm admitting I don't know anything about basketball, but just me looking at the matchup, but like, man, it's with the way Purdue shoots, do you want to get into a shootout with them? I thought that the path would be like muck it up, get to the line, slow the game down, rebound, do the dirty stuff that makes this A&M basketball team tough to beat.
You're going to need to muck it up, but you can't muck it up and not have that offensive substance to go with it. A&M's gotten into trouble against UCF and Oregon where they mucked those games up and it became a rebounding battle, but then A&M went like 5 minutes without scoring. You can't have that against a team like Purdue. The way Purdue has beaten teams like Alabama, like Ole Miss, they've got experience beating SEC teams just as much as A&M has experience beating 2 Big Ten teams already. So Purdue has beaten those teams by scoring 80-plus points. A&M's going to need to keep up if they want to match that trend and be the first SEC team to beat Purdue.
Is there a team that's been on Purdue's schedule when you were going and looking at what they've done that reminded you of A&M and like, hey, like this, they lost to Penn State, they lost to Marquette. Do either of those teams remind you of the Aggies in any way so they can have success?
I admittedly don't know as much about Penn State. I know Marquette is a really solid team on both ends of the floor. I would say I think A&M is somewhat like Ole Miss. I would say Ole Miss isn't the rebounding team.
That was a 2-point game, right?
Yeah, but Ole Miss, when you look at their offensive weapons, they're a bit of an older team with Matthew Morrell, and their best players typically have been their oldest players, and they spread it out between the front court and the back court. They're not really an elite shooting team. A&M is also not an elite shooting team. I would say Ole Miss is probably the best comp I have for A&M. They're not the elite team in the SEC like a Tennessee, Alabama, or Auburn, but they're one of those teams that can finish anywhere from 2 to 8 like A&M is. A&M is a really great team, but the SEC is so deep this year that someone like Ole Miss is probably in a comparable range as them.
Yeah, and I don't think a win or a loss either direction, really, because of the schedule now and what it looks like. Obviously, you want to win the game and be a great resume builder, but there are plenty of opportunities now to go get that back with the SEC schedule. All right, we got Coach Earley waiting in the wings. Luke, thanks for the brief cameo. When we come back, we've gone football, we've gone basketball, and we come back. We're going to go over to Olsen Field at Bluebell Park, go to the Diamond, speak to Texas A&M head baseball coach Mike Earley. The Aggies wrap up fall workouts, getting ready for a very highly anticipated spring campaign. When we come back on TexAgs Live. Welcome back to TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. And inside the Rollo Insurance Studios, we welcome in fighting Texas Aggie baseball coach, Mr. Mike Earley. Wrapped up the fall, seems like a long time ago now.
It does.
And I was just texting you the other day to see if there was anything going on at the ballpark, and you're like, it's dead here right now. What is this period of the year like for you?
Super boring. I mean, you got guys traveling, going home for break, finishing finals, so there's still some guys sticking around lifting. I think we've actually had more guys stay longer this year, just when you have an older team. They tend to not care to want to go home as much as some of our freshmen who get out of here as soon as possible. So pretty boring, and just you get lost in thinking about what the year could be and what you want it to be. So ready to get to Christmas, enjoy that, and then get the guys back on campus.
We had Gavin in here to do an interview, and Gavin was talking about just the work that guys like him and Jace and Shot are starting to put in right now, and how important this window is for them because they missed the fall. Veteran presences, obviously hugely productive presences in your lineup. How pleased have you been with the work ethic that those veterans have come back after missing most of the fall and put in these last few weeks?
Yeah, they've fully caught up to where they're supposed to be. I mean, I guess the only thing they missed out on would be live pitching, but I don't think that's a big deal at all. I mean, once you don't see live pitching for a week or 2 weeks, you're back to square one anyway. So awesome to where they're at. Shots, I would say, right at 100% or close there. Gavin's 100%. So yeah, they're where they're supposed to be. They'll take maybe like a couple days off or a week off here and there, but they're just going to continue on to where they're at, since they continue on throughout the season, like not big break time like some of the other guys took.
I forgot that I didn't introduce Richard Zane.
He also didn't even tell me that I was coming on until about 30 seconds before the segment.
Sometimes it's better that way.
Okay, I've got nothing prepared, but we'll see how it goes.
Go ahead.
Obviously, we know the season starts in the middle of February. So between now and then, what does it look like as far as the ability to actually coach the team, and what are the players doing on their own before they get ready for the first day of practice?
They're on their own right now. January 13th, we'll get back on and have a month to prepare. Only sport in the country, I believe, that has a month to prepare for their season.
Crazy.
So everyone's the same. So it's equally. We could talk about that all day, but yeah. So we get going on the 14th against Elon. So 13th will be a big day, and excited to get going on.
How important is Jeremy McMillan in this time? And when you send these guys off to California, all over the state of Texas, and they got to come back ready to go. And so I'm sure Jeremy gives them, this is the expectation from a strength and conditioning standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, lifting's not like when we were in college where it was like, bench squat, shoulder press.
I still do all those.
Yeah, I mean, I've never changed. It's all programmed specifically to each individual guy. So they got a program that they go off of that tells them what to do every single day, and they got to make the choice whether they want to do it or not. And we check in with them, but all our guys want to do well. So it's we usually have to kick our guys out of the cage, out of the weight room. So I don't really worry about them showing up not ready.
You mentioned last time you were in here, you were really pleased with the competitive nature of y'all's practice settings. What goes into that? Is it just having the older team, or do you think that there's a big time chip on the shoulder of a lot of these kids that they didn't win? You got close. You were the best team in school history, but you didn't win. Do you think they picked that chip up?
Oh yeah. I mean, these guys are elite competitors. Not only elite athlete, but a reason a kid is a high success in college or professional is because they're probably good. You can be super competitive and not be good. It's not going to matter, right? They're really good, but they're really competitive. So it drives, and the coaches are the same way. So we kind of push it, and whether you got to talk a little bit to a guy in a certain way to get him going, and we all do that. So it's real, the banter in the cage is awesome, and it's super productive. There's a time to talk about like mechanics and all the little things that you have to have, but there's a time to just compete and talk a little trash, and our guys have been great about that in the most positive way. So.
You talk about elite competitors. Last year's pitching staff, pretty elite.
Yep.
Most of those pieces are going to be back. Obviously, Evan Ashenbeck, Chris Cortez go into the draft, so do a couple starting pitchers. But for you, what's it been like working with the pitching staff, and where do you see them entering? You said January, so where's the pitching staff stand at?
It's been
now?
great. A lot's said, or we speculate how the offense is going to be, which is warranted. But I think the pitching staff deserves as much wonder of how good it could be, because we got some really good guys, and I love the depth. I mean, the depth is awesome. I love our left-handed pitching. I love our right-handed pitching. I feel like our right-handers are all kind of like right there, and I'm waiting for a few to separate, or maybe they just all rise together, which would be a perfect world. But I love where they're at, and I think there's just a couple guys that there's always who's, you're probably not going to get the Evan Oschenbeck, right, where you're playing at Minute Maid and you have to put him in the game because you have no one else, and then you find out he's really good. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I mean, I like it. I like it a lot. I like how competitive they are, their work ethic. They're very process-driven, right? These guys take 2 hours to get ready to throw, which is fine. I'm for all that. But at the same time, they're really competitive and led by Prager and Lampkin.
Yeah, that was going to ask.
I want to jump in real quick.
Go ahead.
We've got another weekend at Minute Maid scheduled for this year. Please don't play any games that go to like 2 a.m. on Sunday or Monday morning.
You just jinxed it, huh?
Selfish.
As long as we win. That game's either awesome or awful. Like
you were coaching against Gavin Cash, who you didn't even know 2 years later would be in the middle.
I actually joke about him because he ran into the wall that game, and I was coaching first, and I asked him if he was okay, and he didn't really respond. And I was like, I almost didn't recruit you because I was still mad at the fact that you couldn't even. I kind of carry stuff like that.
Yeah. That's good as a coach, right? You may grow out of that, but you mentioned Ryan Prager and Justin Lampkin. Prager didn't pitch in the fall. I think everybody was okay with that. We kind of known commodity. Justin Lampkin's got a lot of folks in your program talking about him and just the continued jumps he's made. What have you seen out of the left-hander from Corpus that has got so many people fired up about his potential this year?
He's just, a year older, a year stronger, a year better, or, could be even more so once we get to the season. He's put on some really good weight, like Mac has helped him a ton, and then he's really taken to JK. Like they click from day one. And we didn't throw him that much this fall just because his biggest thing is building his engine, building his strength, trying to avoid those lapses in the season because, he's had some really good moments. He's had some highs. I wouldn't say lows, but kind of teeters there in the middle a little bit. So we think if we can keep him strong and healthy the entire year, we think we can be a high and be one of the best pitchers in the SEC because there's been times freshman year, sophomore year when that guy's on the mound, like there's no one better than him. So, we're just trying to get that out of him more consistently. And it's a natural progression, right, from freshman, sophomore to, hopefully junior year. It all clicks way more consistently.
You've spoken a lot about Caden Kent. What have you seen out of him just in his leadership role, his voice continue to grow?
He's just Kent, man. He's awesome. He comes to work every single day. He had gotten sick a couple weeks ago, and it was wild to not see him at the field for like 3 or 4 days or in the cage, and he hated it. He even, I think, he just comes sit around but stay away from everyone just because he loves being around. It's probably good for him. But yeah, he's been good. He's been good. I mean, the guys obviously really take to him, and I think that one thing about Caden, which is awesome, is he doesn't care what anyone thinks at any time in the most respectful way. So he's himself, elite competitor, and not just. He's not just a competitor though. He is talented. Like this is probably a top 5 round type guy at the worst in my opinion. So this isn't just some guy who goes out there and grinds. I think he gets that stigma a little bit as the shot. Like these are talented guys that I think can make big contributions.
You mentioned shot. When did you find out he was ordained? Did you see that on Twitter?
I did.
He did a wedding, I guess.
I think I found out the day of the wedding because he's doing his rehab hitting, and he was like, "Hey, I can't hit today," and I was like, "Well, why?" He's like, and then I'm like, "That's awesome. Go ahead, yeah. Have at it." So he's
typical
a man of many talents. And then I guess the real question is, how is his rehab going, and where's he at?
He's doing good. I mean, he is. I mean, I think maybe you guys a little, or him more, and the public sees like the Hayden Schott, funny guy, which he is. He's awesome. He's entertaining. But when you talk about his rehab and talk about him wanting to get back, like this guy is an elite competitor and teammate. Like as a coach, you let a guy do a little bit because you see them behind closed doors and how they do things. So he's been all over it, and talk about someone who just wants to win, probably more than any guy I've ever coached, probably the best teammate I've ever coached when it comes to the fact that he doesn't care about his own success. He truly wants to win. So I think he takes that into his rehab and into all the work he does because he wants to have a good year.
Before the end of the fall, and I think you even spoke to Kendall Rogers about this in his D1 baseball kind of overview of y'all's fall. You're talking about first base and catcher and just the healthy competition that's going on between Bergevin and Benderup at first, and then the guys you brought in at catcher. And then Where does Jamal George fit in all this? So first catcher and Jamal is kind of piece to the puzzle.
I don't know. It's something that'll sort itself out. But I mean, right now, at the catching position, the way I look at it currently is we have a right-handed hitter and a left-handed hitter. And, they both do different things. Bear's potential for power is there if he can tap into it. And then, Jacob is just a really good baseball player, gives you something different. He's a, really good base runner for someone who's not fast. He can bunt, he can hit. He's shown some pull side power. And then, there's Jamal's right there as far as talent-wise. He's as talented as anyone on the team in a smaller stature as far as, like, his tools and ability to do stuff for the size he is. But, yeah, we'll see how it plays out in that regard. And then first base is just going to be a battle all year. You hope someone separates and, whatever guy earns the job, it's not going to be, in my opinion, I say this now, but until we got to win games, in and out. Like, I want guys to be able to get comfortable at some point, but, sometimes you get comfortable with being uncomfortable and just understand, like, it's my time to go, it's my time to go. There's no excuse. No one really cares if you haven't had an AB in a week.
That's right.
It doesn't matter. That's going to be our mentality, though. It's just you're ready. Like, there's not an excuse. Like, we have pitching machines that simulate live pitching. Like, they cost $15,000. We got a few of them. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so we should be as prepared as possible. And I think if you don't make it a thing, it's not a thing. So not to go on a tangent about that, but those guys are going to have to be ready to go in and out in the game in the seventh, out the game. That's the catching position, the first base position. But Blake and Matt have done an awesome job, and I'm excited about both of them.
All right, when we come back, more with Coach Earley. I want to get to some of your questions, I think, with McKinley over in the Social Center. Don't forget 979-693-1150. You want to ask Coach Earley a question, maybe we'll get a couple in. I also want to try to hit on some of this recruiting class because you guys did a great job on the trail in your first time.
Billy's time. He's at 10, right?
Yeah, we'll cut into all of Billy's time. More with Coach Earley when we come back on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. All right, wrapping up our baseball discussion with Texas Aggie head baseball coach Mike Earley. Going to go over to McKinley Polanski in the Angry Elephant News and Social Center's got some text messages from the fans for Coach Earley.
Yes, I do. Steven asked, can we get an update on status of Troy Wansing?
It's funny you asked that. I actually was watching out the window and he was playing catch and just seeing him move around. He's in a really good spot, I would say.
Wow.
Ahead of schedule, for the injury he had. And, I wouldn't bet against him. He's pretty relentless kid, so he's in a really good spot currently. We just got to stay there.
Well, and he's got one of the pitches on staff. If he gets healthy, like the slider is one of your better offerings on the staff. So
no doubt.
We're all pulling for him, obviously, but that would be a huge addition, maybe that you didn't know that you were going to have.
Yeah, it's one you don't count on really, but you kind of got it in the back of your mind. So we're just kind of letting it go, and he's been relentless in his work ethic and his rehab. So,
okay.
Okay. Kevin and Brian says, Bronny, ask Coach if he thinks the scholarship limits will be changing.
They're definitely changing. The funny part is we don't know exactly what they are yet. So I think probably similar.
How do you recruit to that?
You just do it. You kind of operate on what you think is going to be the lower amount or lower level and roster size, and then it's always easier to add and rather than take away. And I think you can see by the size of our recruiting class how we're doing it as opposed to how some other schools are doing it. They're going to have to walk some offers back, and we don't. That happens at times, but we want to try to avoid it as much as possible.
Yeah, it makes for some uncomfortable conversations. Any more?
Yes. Carl from Brian said, if you had to field an SEC game starting lineup with what you know now, what would that look like?
On the spot. Give me your starting 9.
I'm going to tell you, Jace is in center, and that's what we'll go from there.
I bet Sorrell's probably in there.
Sorrell's probably in there, too.
Yeah. No, I think we asked you this last time you were here. It's like, how many times do you and Caleb and Fox and JK sit down and go through this stuff? Because the possibilities, it's fun to mess with.
It's fun, and you're never right. Like, if you look at the notes section of my phone, I have, different lineups, and you're never going to be right. Like, it's just something's going to happen or someone's going to, Sawyer Farr. Like, there's just guys that could, you literally just never know what it could be.
And it's a kind of a fool's errand to think that you are going to have all those. You can't pick winners and losers right now.
Right.
It's way too early to do.
No, I mean, the spring, as important as the fall is, like the lead up in the spring, the games you play there are way more. They're fresh in your mind.
All right, going to talk to you about this recruiting class really quickly.
Yeah.
I think the highest one that A&M has ever signed, according to Perfect Game.
Yeah.
You guys did tremendous work. There's a lot of these kids that were on this commitment list that either backed away from their commitment or were not committed whenever you got the job. Just talk about the work that Caleb and yourself and the whole staff put in to get this thing over the line.
Yeah, as you know, baseball recruiting is the rankings, I would say, can vary or be different or it's not as accurate. Maybe it's like that in other sports too. But yeah, for a class that was at 8, dropped into the 30s and to finish at 5 or 6, depending on the publication, it was, a lot of work for sure. And we lost some guys, which is fine, but we kept the guys we wanted and we were able to add some really, really good players, after the new staff came in. So excited about the versatility of the group with multiple, two-way guys and switch hitters and some really good arms and just really good kids, man.
And you cleaned up at the top of the state of Texas. You guys did really good in state, and I felt like that has to be kind of a motto going into each cycle, right?
Yeah, I think we got 2 of the best left-handed pitchers in the state. I think we got the 2 best two-way guys in the state, and I think all those guys play shortstop. We have another shortstop who I think is one of the best shortstops in the country. We did really well in the state of Texas, which we always want to do.
All right, Coach, thank you for your time. Enjoy your Christmas and your New Year's, and then I think the next time we talk to you, it'll be time for ball.
Yes, sir.
That's Texas A&M baseball coach Mike Earley on TexAgs Live. Billy Liucci when we come back. Welcome back to TexAgs Radio. I did it, Nick. Don't shake your head in disgust. And then whoever yelled all back there.
Who do you think it was?
Kay Naegeli.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, always got a very opinionated.
Yep.
TexAgs Live. I knew I was going to screw something up, and I'm sure that I've missed ad reads because every
we're
time
doing a good job.
Okay. As soon as I pull up David's email, the show rundown, and I see all these colors, my brain just shuts off. Appreciate Coach Earley joining the show, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers inside the Rollo Insurance Studios. I'm Ryan Brauninger in here with you today. Either me or Nick will be back on Monday as David wraps up his soccer trip with his kids. We talked to John Pugliese. Obviously, Coach Earley was great for 2 segments. Very, appreciative of his time as the head coach. And then we're awaiting Billy Liucci. I'm guessing he's not here yet, Nick?
Yeah, not yet.
Of course. He's the king of making me tap dance. Or just
tell us a little
dance.
bit about, I know Billy will probably want to get into it, but tell us a little bit about Michael Earley.
Yeah, we're going to get to it with Billy. 6'5", 265-pound tight end originally from Omaha, Nebraska, comes to A&M from Auburn with a pair of years of eligibility left. It's a position, and again, we're going to get into this with Billy, and it's kind of how you navigate the portal now. There has to be an upper echelon of these guys change the way we do stuff because they're so good. And then there has to be elements to say, these guys fit with what we do, and they help our ball club and fill a need. And I think Michael Earley is that. Not hugely productive as a pass receiver, but he's not being brought in to do that. There is, and I know Matthew Dawson probably has this on his spreadsheet somewhere, but how many snaps this year did A&M play with an H-back type of player on the field? I can remember a bunch anecdotally off the top of my head. But there has to be, they needed a presence in the run game, the Aggies did, at that tight end position, and they needed some size. They needed some stature because we know that Colin Klein likes to be versatile in his run game and be versatile in terms of who's pulling, who's setting edges, where do these guys line up? And so I think that was the idea behind signing Michael Earley. They needed some more versatility in the spot. They needed somebody that was better at the point of attack. And you have 2 tight ends that are leaving, and Shane Calhoun filled this void for the majority of the year. So that was the purpose behind them going to get a guy like Michael Earley, and they're going to keep doing that. I would say Jacob Zeno is the same type of player in terms of going out to fill a need. Billy, just talking about in this transfer portal haul, Mike Elko and his staff have a group of kids that they are targeting that are going to change the way they throw the ball down the field. They're going to change the way maybe they rush the passer. But there's also within that, they're going to take some guys that fill roster needs, and that's what Michael Earley and Jacob Zeno have been to a certain extent.
Yeah, it's going to be – there's going to be a mix, right? Like, they're not going to – 2 things we know. We know they're not going to sign 21, 22 guys like they did last year. We also know that they're not going to there's still roles to fill. There's a depth chart to fill out. There are guys that could, like a Michael Earley, we didn't know what Trey Watson's impact was going to be when he got there. And you saw it. Some weeks it was bigger than others. I think there was a path there somehow that, Trey Watson could have had even more of an impact. It just didn't work out that way in terms of what they were doing offensively. But Michael Earley could be like a massive improvement in blocking at tight end. That would be the hope. And then you see him move around. He's a quick, athletic guy for being his size. So he could go out there and catch as many passes as Theo or Trey did this year. But really, you might look up and go, man, when they added that tight end from Auburn, it gave them something they didn't have this year. In that, even if you just want to narrow it all the way down and say on the edge and that short yardage stuff, even if that is where this guy, and I think he's a lot more capable than that. But what I'm saying is there are roles in little areas they need to fill to have a complete team next year. And one of those obviously was to have a veteran quarterback in there competing. And he'll really compete with Miles O'Neill, I think, for that QB2 role. And you have to have that. You can't just give Marcel just a clear path of nothingness. You have to give a veteran. And by the way, Zeno could help Marcel become a much better quarterback. Just in that room, watching film, as much football as he's played. And you also can't just have it where Miles O'Neill, after quarterbacking a drive all season, is you go into a whole season with him as QB2. You've got to create competition, and the best way to do that is to have a veteran in that room that's played a lot of football. So, yeah, you're going to see role things, Brawny, and then there's going to be a lot of these commitments coming up that the fans are going to get really excited about because of, A, either their name or what their recruiting hype was, or B, what they've shown on tape as college football players already, production.
It's a big weekend in terms of visitors for A&M. Looking at guys like Nick Anderson coming in. They had Jalen Braxton in, corner from Arkansas, Julian Humphrey, corner from Georgia.
You're just going to insist on not pronouncing that H, aren't you? You keep saying Humphrey.
Julian Humphrey?
I feel like you're saying Humphrey like it's a
Is this
Beaumont
one of those
thing.
like is this one of those like Stewie Family Guy? Why are you putting so much emphasis on the
What did he
H?
say?
My mom says white.
White.
Yeah.
White.
Cool Whip.
Oh, that's what he was saying.
Yeah, it's Cool Whip.
Yeah. Yeah, but you were doing the opposite, and I literally thought you're doing a golden triangle.
No, I didn't even know that I was doing
like
that.
there's
Sometimes
a bar
it just
in
comes
there's
out.
a bar in Nederland called
Called
Humphreys
Humphreys.
or something.
Well, me and Jason have been talking about Nico. Jason's married to a Cajun,
Mm-hmm.
and he says it de Villiers, and I'm like, that's de Villiers.
Even I know that. I would say that.
Yeah. But it is a big weekend, and I'm wondering, we know how much this stuff changes, and you were on radio yesterday talking about the Kevin Concepcion deal.
Yeah.
And we've also heard stories of kids showing up at a metropolitan airport planning to go one place, and somebody else picks them up, takes them to another. Like, that's what you're dealing with here. And so it is extreme, as fickle as recruiting is, ramp it up on a David Nuno steroid cycle, and that's what we've got.
Wow. That was good. I think, look, this is like, takes you back to like the stories when I first got in this business that coaches, the old coaches would
Is that
tell.
when you got called Vanilla Ice at
Madison High School?
Yeah.
Man, what's Vanilla Ice doing in here? Which, hey, I don't know. I mean, Vanilla Ice
What's that guy's
back in
real
the day
name?
had cool hair.
Rob Van Winkle?
Yeah, Van Winkle. That's right. Big Miami Hurricane
He's
guy.
got some questionable
Didn't he get caught in a lot of lies?
Yeah, well, I
back
think he's
then?
got some questionable tweets out there, too.
Would that surprise you?
No, maybe we should move on.
Got some questionable music, too. He's the type that would get wind of this and show up here, like at 50 and come after
I've always
us.
thought that Nick Savage, he doesn't listen to rap music, but he knows the words to those types of rap songs. Like Nick at the Christmas party doing Ice Ice Baby.
I think David Nuno probably knew that dance.
Nuno backup dancer.
In
Nick
like high
doing-
school.
Yeah, but then Nuno, he didn't do it. as
Tell me
good
you
as I
couldn't
could
see
do.
Nuno with a
MC Hammer
a
Pants?
left earring and some like Z Cavaricis practicing that dance in the mirror.
Is
at
that the
home.
pants?
Yeah.
I thought, what about Zubas?
Those were a little after us. Hunter probably wore Zubas like 5 years after they
what
were cool.
size?
He still does wear them. They're just tailored.
6X?
They're just tailored Zubas. Big pants, good one. So it reminds me
We don't
though.
get to be on the radio enough anymore together.
I know.
We should have our own show.
Well, we're trying. We're gonna have him on too, just so he could like.
He's coming in?
No, but I'm just
Oh.
saying, just so he could critique our.
He's had a lot to
outfits.
say recently. Hunter Goodwin has.
About you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know.
He's been chirpy.
Make him face the music.
He's been chirpy. I think. Look, but it reminds me of back then and the stories. Like, so the older coaches, when I was first getting into it, they were older. They were coaching in the '80s, and when things were like the wild. So they would tell old stories, recruiting stories, and it's stuff like now where the guy was at the airport, he had already checked in, and there was John Robinson or Curly Hallman or whoever, Jackie Sherrill met him. Barry Switzer picked him off at the airport, pulled up in a limousine, and they grabbed him and just shoved him in the limo and took him to Norman. 14-hour drive to Norman, like just crazy things. And that's where we're back at. And it's it's funny and it's silly, but it's really not. It's complete. It's a complete it show. It's stupid. There's no rules and regulations. Nobody gives a damn what they're doing. You got agents involved. A lot of times these agents are telling the kids, like there might be a prospect about to go to Ohio State, and the agent says, no, we need to go to Florida this weekend. You're going to end up getting this much money. And so if you're a high school recruit or you're a transfer portal guy that's transferring from UAB and you're looking at Ohio State and Florida and Tennessee, and you and your family didn't go through this in the recruiting process first, you like don't know any better. And this is an agent. They're supposed to know. They're supposed to be kind of advising you, an authority figure. And they're not all bad, and most of them probably aren't, but a lot of them are. And the cuts they're taking of these kids' deals is enough. It's enough to make you sick. And again, there are real agents in this game that aren't doing that. And
it's hard to comb through what's real and what's not, though. Like
it's hard to comb through the money that's real or not.
Right.
Because it's almost like as college coaches now, they're not incentivized to lie, but it's almost like you have to exaggerate.
If you're not, somebody
and
else
make promises for survival. Because not someone else, everyone else. It's a terrible situation. I like the portal because it's fun. Like we get to sit here and talk about it, and it gives you a chance every year. And we can go down positions on this team and say, look, if this was the old days and A&M was going into next year, here's a position that it's just going to be hard for them to turn over in 1 year. I mean, you'd be looking at wide receiver going, okay, Noah showed a lot this year. Terry Bussey is going to be really good. Okay. We like Bethel Roman, Isaiah, well, they haven't really played. And you're going into a season, and I know I'll be leaving somebody out, but you're going into a season with just that. So you're having to sit there and go, and then whatever true freshman you sign, obviously, Jerome Miles, you'd hope, comes
coming
back
off an injury,
ready,
though.
Ready to roll. But you'd be going into that season going, okay, this position is what it is. So Noah's going to have to be a superstar. Terry Bussey's going to have to take the step into being a superstar for this position to really be top end in the SEC. Well, now you could go out, and I'm not saying they're getting these guys, but they do have a real chance. You can go out and get Micah Hudson, Nick Anderson. You could go out and get a third guy like that to go with the guys
Mario
you have.
Craver.
Yeah, Craver, who they really love. And you can go out and do that and look up and go, man, this is one of the better receiving corps in the league. So it's fun, and it gives every coaching staff a chance to shore up any and all weaknesses they have every year pending their checkbook, right? But it's also, to call it the Wild West would be like insulting to the Wild West.
It's beyond that. Like
this is like a prison riot. Anything goes at all times. It doesn't matter. There's no one stopping it.
Some of these kids, they go in the transfer portal and immediately commit somewhere else. We're supposed to ignore that wasn't tampered with for months on end.
And this isn't a holier than thou thing.
No, it's not.
This is college football.
I think what we're trying to do, Billy, is explain what the coaches are having to try to navigate through day to day. It will change 3 or 4 times a day.
And just as important, guys, and I know some of these things you don't understand, like in terms of like the magnitude of them, but every one of these announcements that come down of guys coming back, there's maybe a returning starter that they're fending off. I mean, you're always fending all of them off, just like every school is. But I mean, there's like maybe a returning starter that I wouldn't even say is in limbo, Brian. I wouldn't even say that. But there's one that maybe they're like, okay, we know everybody's coming for them. That's about it. And even that guy, I think, will stay. That is just as important as this portal. So everybody that gets so fired up about new additions because you haven't seen them yet in maroon and white, remember, like, certain positions might be really shored up by what's coming back.
If they get an announcement from Trey Zune or Amaj Adams, that's a massive addition.
And look, I said from the beginning, it was those two and the 2 D linemen were kind of and really even like Will Lee and Scooby, okay?
Mhm.
Like those 6 were like do they go NFL or do they stay? And right now, 2 left, 2 stayed. The 2 that left, I think you were hoping against hope you could get one of them back in Stewart or Scorton. That was unrealistic. Realistic are Trey Zune and Armaje Reed-Adams. And then you look at what your O-line could look like next year. With Mark Naboo, you could potentially return 5 starters. And that's to say they have to hold off. If you might see them bring in a portal O-lineman, but you got guys that they're really excited about, like Papa Afua, Blake Ivy, really that whole class of true freshmen. So if those 2 came back, man, all of a sudden you look at that O-line and go, man, they should take another big jump. And again, it wouldn't shock me at all. We see the names on the visit list. There's about 3 of them right now.
I have
2 or
avoided
3.
the portal thread today because it was a total disaster this morning when I woke up and looked at it.
Oh God, what was going on?
Well, just people are just out of hand.
They don't think there's been a big enough splash yet. Let me guess.
And we're 4 days into the portal being open. And that's the crazy thing is like we've had all this happen and there's still over a month left when you consider the kids that are going to be in the playoff, they get an extended portal window.
But Bronny, if you went on Twitter and said, "Get ready, folks, gonna be big, hearing great things," then everybody calms down because that's all that matters anymore. It's just making crap up and putting it on Twitter and under an anonymous account and hoping you get some likes. And if you tell people what they want to hear, you will get the likes.
I look behind the curtain. We do have, let's see, on campus today at Texas A&M, Prince Wolu Monmielen from Nebraska.
Yep.
Mario Craver, wide receiver out of Mississippi State. Jack Pyburn, Florida. Julian Humphrey, Georgia. And then Isaiah World, offensive tackle from Nevada. And they're expecting more in throughout the duration of the weekend. And I left off Nick Anderson.
You've got one from Nevada, one from Rice. O-line, they might add one. And obviously, like you also have to be prepared in case Zune or Armaje don't return. So you better be bringing guys in. But I think you could see a depth piece. I think, you've lost a lot of depth on the O-line. That's all. And again, like I've said, these guys, they're not being pushed out the door. Some of them, but guys like Dewberry and Shanahan, they're not being pushed out the door. I think they want to play. B, in some of these kids' instances, there's a level that they want to be compensated for to play football at A&M or anywhere else, and A&M's got to look at their roster and go, does what this guy provide, does what he provide match up with what he's asking for? And in a lot of these instances, particularly with higher name recruits that come out already, that you come in at this level before you've played. So you just think automatically by being here a year, even if you haven't played or played much, you go to this level. And then you play a little bit, but you're not starting and and then you think you go to this level, and then you finally reach that tipping point where you become a part of the exodus because you go, not worth it. Not that player's not worth it, but what he's asking for doesn't match up with what we think he provides to our football team. So that's a reality of this thing as well. So again, O-line, a couple guys, that visit list right there is really impressive. What's interesting to me, Brauning, and I think this is going to be heavy D-line and wide receiver, right? I mean, you feel the same way?
For sure.
Heavy D-line, wide receiver.
Maybe 4 at each.
Tight end is certainly a need, and they started to address it with Riley yesterday. I think there's probably even a need for a second. So you could say, at this point, though, it looks wide receiver, defensive line, and then from there, it's kind of, I wouldn't say best available, because to go get best available, you have to really come out of your checkbook, and to do that, you have to have a real specific need at that position, and I don't know where else that really exists, but I just think you'll see a sprinkling, 3, 4, 5 guys.
The total
from
we're
other
looking
positions.
at 10 to 15,
Yeah.
and it might be closer to 10. It might be in that 12 range.
Yeah.
When you think about 4 at D-line, 4 at wide receiver, 2 at tight end,
4 at
one
receiver.
one at quarterback. I mean, that's the top
Yeah.
end, right?
Yeah, that's the top.
I mean, there's 11 right there, and then you may pick off one linebacker, whatever.
I think they'll pick off. I mean, look, you're bringing in DBs. I think they definitely would love to add one more corner. I think you can kind of pencil that in as one of the spots too. When you look at the couple dudes they're bringing in, Arkansas, Georgia, and Humphrey, you know, like I think you could see them add a corner.
Walter Humphrey. That's why I say it.
The lawyer. That's right. See, that's exactly what it is. I knew it was a Beaumont thing.
They gave me a chance to cut it off.
Yeah.
So we got to go to commercial. We'll be back. A lot more.
I want to
portal
come
stuff
back
get
and
to.
talk about specific numbers of teams in portal. I think there's something interesting to be found there.
All right, a lot more with Luch when we come back. You listen to TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers.
Everyone, David Nuno here in a moment right now for Snaps Clothing. They are the makers of the only official licensed Texas A&M Pearl Snap shirts. I'm wearing it right now. This is part of their Tailgater collection. It's built for game day. My friend Edgar over there is doing great work. You've got to check out the clothing. It's the Pearl Snaps. It's the cool look. It's kind of hip, but also Western. You'll love it, and they have great stuff there. They'll keep you comfortable as you're repping your Aggie gear, and it's the place to go to get it. Whether you're watching the game from home or tailgating before watching the stands, these shirts have you covered. Head to snapsclothing.com. That is snapsclothing.com to gear up for the season.
Burning Love.
Big Elvis guy?
Well, my grandma is, and she's fallen twice in the last couple of weeks, so I wanted to. No, she's okay.
Okay.
But
I'm like, what?
But
You just made a comment about. I didn't. Even
she
make
loves Elvis.
Yeah.
She's always loved Elvis. She used to have a clock in her kitchen. She loved Elvis and cows.
Would his hips turn with the?
With the clock was the second hand was ticking. His hips would swing back and forth.
I actually really like Elvis. Like if you go back and watch, just go to YouTube and watch some of his performances, like real early, and then even some of those late ones in Vegas. Like they don't make showmen like that anymore. There's a very short list, and not that Elvis, that was too old for me. I'm not old enough to really like to remember Elvis at all. But like, who's out there like that now? I mean, not Elvis love, but I mean Taylor Swift. And I say, you say that and you make that face, but the way she entertains and performs and the number of people that are into her music, like when I was a kid, it was Michael Jackson.
Garth Brooks.
He is more so than any country artist ever.
Yep.
And
I have personal opinion. I think Cody Johnson's incredibly entertaining.
I love Cody Johnson, but
not at that level.
We're talking. You're literally
Justin Timberlake would be up there.
Yeah, but I don't think his peak is. He's certainly not at his peak. But I don't think. I think to me, I'm talking about like Elvis. Obviously you had the Beatles before that, but I mean, Michael Jackson certainly was in. I mean, Michael Jackson's right up near the top. Maybe Madonna.
Ugh.
Yeah, dude. See, we're not talking
I
about.
know. I'm just. That was my own personal opinion.
That was your first. Yeah. You wouldn't have been saying that in the '80s, but
she's heinous.
She was.
All right.
She was badass.
You wanted to get into something like portal numbers and teams.
By the way, talk about somebody. I don't know what some of these people do to their appearance, and I see a lot of it. Just in Dallas.
Last two people you mentioned.
Just in Dallas alone, we got a real problem with that, with people with their lips and eyebrows, and you got a bunch of people walking around looking like, Charlie Chaplin or some kind of, what's the reef called down there?
The reef.
The reef in the coral reef, like some of these fish you might find in the reefs down there with these lips. But the Great Barrier Reef, yeah. Like off of Australia.
That's what Deep Ellum looks like?
Yeah. Nobody goes there anymore, I don't think. But anyway, go ahead.
No, you're the
Deep Ellum.
I was letting you go.
It's more of an uptown, I guess you say.
You said you wanted to talk about like numbers and schools. I didn't know where you were going.
Yeah, no, I'd look at the list of like the teams with the most guys in the portal. And so when I look at here's what you go, like a team with a coaching change, you obviously expect to be way up there. A team after year one of a head coach, like where A&M is, you expect to be up there. There's that feeling out period. Okay, I know my team now. I didn't a year ago. Now I do. These are the guys that we can let go. These are the positions we really need to clear some space for and shore up. Just kind of what I was talking about earlier, too. You have a lot of guys that don't play that want more. Beyond that, if you don't check one of those two boxes and you're way up there on that transfer portal number, like Mississippi State, you're good. Coaching change, you're good. What's wrong? Why is Zane yelling back? I'm sorry, radio listening audience, but we've got a buffoon. I created this. When I invited him to Detroit, that might be the end of it.
He did such a good job with that, though.
He held it together.
Yeah, he reined it in. Very,
you should have seen him sitting there at lunch with breakfast with Dan, though. He was so nervous he wouldn't even talk. When Dan walked up, he audibly on the sideline was like, "Oh, holy!" I could almost said it. Forget we're still on there. Holy! And he was so distracted by Dan, he didn't realize that the guy whose jersey he was wearing, he rocked full jersey to the game, which is actually okay in Detroit because people are just obsessed. Barry Sanders walked right by Zane.
I do have an opinion that you shouldn't be wearing jerseys of people younger than you unless it's your family. So if like Richard had on a Jahmyr Gibbs jersey, that's a little weird for me.
I get it, but what if I could see Zane in the Aiden Hutchinson jersey? You wouldn't have had a J.J. Watt jersey a few years ago?
Like the only jerseys I had growing up were like Bagwell, Nolan Ryan, Biggio.
What about Friends?
Yeah, I can make an exception for like close personal friends. Yeah. Like if you had a sweet Dan Campbell A&M jersey that you rock.
I actually have a Dan Campbell Giants jersey that I never wore. He signed it when he got to the Giants. It was because it was '89, and my favorite tight end growing up was Mark Bavaro. So it was a '89 signed Giants jersey of his. I've actually, hopefully this doesn't get back to him, but I've got
say it online.
I've got a giant size Steve McKinney. Like he gave me one when he was with the Texans because my thought was I was going to get all the roomies and frame their jerseys in my office. But I was like, now I look back and I go, that's a lot of spare part. Like I don't want a Goodwin jersey. Imagine I don't want, Seth jersey. But at the time, the first two I got were Dan and Steve. The one I really need is a Leckler one, though. He's obviously, the most accomplished.
Look what Richard just yelling a little bit did.
But I had a Dan and Steve. But I need to come in here one day. We need to put I don't know how I'd fit into a jersey. You know how they're so small. I bet we could get Zane to come in here in a Steve McKinney Texans jersey one day. We're gonna have to do that.
Well, Seth is shrinking to look like Richard. If we're being honest,
Seth looks like Tim Walz. Is what Seth looks like. Like just look at him. Okay, sorry, Seth. Keep going. I'm saying,
we're going
appearance-wise. I'm not that far off.
Nick wants us to go to commercial, and I don't disagree. We're going to come
do
back
a little extra today, too, because you're not coming to lunch with us. We got a little fun lunch.
TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We'll see if we're back on the other side of the break. All right, heading into the end of the show. We may go a little bit long.
Yeah, we're gonna
Depends on how much Billy wants to continue the transfer portal stuff, or do you want to start talking Aggie basketball?
Well, I think we still have
your point before Richard started screaming.
Yeah,
was
close
that,
out the portal and then talk a little Aggie hoops, and then we'll go a little long. I want to talk briefly about the schedule.
Okay.
Or just
so before Richard started screaming during the last segment, which got us into Seth McKinney looking like Tim Waltz. You were talking about exoduses from programs that had new coaches and tracking transfer portal numbers.
Yeah.
Like Arkansas, it's concerning.
Arkansas, Oklahoma. Like Oklahoma, you're losing all your receivers, right? Okay, fine. But those guys were all supposed to be really good, and they either got hurt or decided not to play for you. And I know you got a new OC coming in and stuff, but you don't just power wash the whole place after 3 years. You know, to be able to do that, like the coach that's been there 10 years, and it's like, man, before we call this thing and say that we can't get, but let's power wash this whole thing. Let's try to flip it and get this thing going again one more time. Those coaches have earned that. When you're having to do that 3 years in, you can sell a new OC, you can sell a transfer portal quarterback from Washington State, and maybe it might work, but the numbers there for OU tells me you have a real problem that far into a tenure. You have failed. And you're only there because you have, now, it went over Bama, probably went a long way, but you're only there because the contract says you're there. Same with Hugh Freeze. And I say that as an Aggie, and it's unfortunate that they beat A&M. It's really unfortunate around here because we'd have been this week talking about what happened with the Aggies and Longhorns in the SEC title game, right? But there's a reality, too, that Auburn's season is there's a lot more that went on this year than them beating A&M in 4 overtimes. Hugh Freeze is in a bad spot. What they're doing now at Auburn is they're saying, and I think it's kind of what Texas did with Sark, not that they'd given up on Sark after 1 year, but they just basically said, we're hiring you and we're kicking in a $1 kajillion. So that combination, we believe, will win. And maybe there, a lot of people believe this, and I was told even at the time, and by people, CDC's guy he really liked was Sonny Dykes. Thank God for Texas fans, it didn't work in the program. It didn't work out that way. But I think Steve Sarkisian, the resume and the body of work did not match up to me with having that Texas job. Famously, I've been quoted a million times as saying that, and I meant it when I said it. I think it was true then. But the combination of him and NIL, Texas-powered NIL, and what a recruiter he was, and the style of play, all that, whoever decided to go with him was certainly smarter and had more foresight than whoever thought that getting Sonny Dykes would be a good idea. Let's put it that way. My big idea was they should hire Dan Mullen, who, by the way, just took the job at UNLV yesterday. But those teams, Brawny, that are redoing it a couple, 3, 4 years in, like a Hugh Freeze, Auburn's just said, here's all the money. Here you go, because we've seen enough to not feel good about you doing this.
And it's probably cheaper than having to buy them out.
That's exactly what it is. It's exactly what it is.
And so they're going all in, and Auburn's one of those schools where we've heard some pretty interesting stories coming out of there so far.
And by the way, here's a prediction. Everyone that does that, they're eventually those coaches are going to fail.
Well, what's the old saying? Whatever you're going to do eventually should probably happen immediately.
Yep.
Yeah, especially in coaching searches.
So do you have a list pulled up? Can you see other schools with really high portal numbers?
I don't have it. I'd have to look it up.
Arkansas is certainly one of them. It's almost sad what's happening right now up there with Sam Pittman. I guess the moral of that story is don't hire Bobby Petrino when you're on the ropes. I mean, I don't know how handcuffed Petrino was, if it was by Jimbo, if it was by having Taylon Green as your quarterback, where that bad offensive
He's coming
line.
back.
But the reality is, we've had a couple coaches hire Bobby Petrino, and it hadn't worked out quite like they'd hoped.
Yeah,
but what's going on?
That was the trepidation a lot of Aggies had, was like, yeah, he was good, but it was over a decade ago, and I think so much has changed.
If you're an Arkansas fan, and I actually think Petrino is a good play. I mean, you look at them this year in a lot of games. They made a massive jump. Okay, Kendall Briles was bad. I'm talking about a bad OC, and there was Kendall Briles versus what Petrino did even in 1 year. But it's just when it's over, you can tell it's over. Imagine being an Arkansas fan right now.
Well, what is that job in Fayetteville now? Like, it's got infinitely more difficult with Texas and Oklahoma coming into the league.
Do you want to just give up and say, hey, we're going all in with Coach Cal at basketball and we're going to win national championships because that's what everyone can? Well, Van Horn ain't winning. Are we off air?
No.
Okay. Van Horn ain't winning a damn thing. Evidently. I mean, his body of work will tell you he's not. And I'm exaggerating there. Obviously, he's an elite coach. But, yeah, like, do you go all in with basketball? You're established at baseball. They're going to be a powerhouse as long as Van Horn's there. Do you go all in with hoops and say, hey, this is the place that invented 40 minutes of hell and the old Barnhill Arena and like Nolan Richardson and like we're going to win, Bill Clinton sitting in the stands. We're going to bring that back with Coach Cal. I'm going, it's like
Bill Clinton sitting next to Seth McKinney in the stand.
But you know what I'm saying, though? Are they going to? Is that what they're going to do? And will that make Arkansas fans happy?
It's an interesting question. Like, what is that football job now?
I mean, I still think if you get the right people interested, that job. You're not going to be a top 5 in the SEC.
Yeah,
for sure.
but it's because it's a state that even though it has one university, there's not enough high school talent in that state to win at that level.
And it's really hard for them to get the real kids out of Texas.
And I'll tell you what, Mizzou's taking a big jump because their high school NIL program now.
Yeah.
And that's going to keep a lot of the best players and they got 2 big metropolises in the state.
And what's their ceiling too, though? You know,
they've been to the SEC East. They've been to the SEC title game twice.
Yeah, but go back and look at the SEC East back then. They're never getting that back. And I'm going to tell you this: a guy like if Drink really succeeded, somebody could hire him away.
Oh, for sure.
And so anybody they produce. So look, the good news is A&M is one of those jobs that we're talking about that they're not. Mike Elko is the next in line to say, is this the guy that can get it where it's not deserves to be, but where it should be. And you don't deserve anything. I know we all want, like as fans, as season ticket holders, as the biggest of big donors, you don't deserve to be there, but you should be there. Like the two are different. You're not entitled to it, but you should be there with everything that this place has to offer.
All the buildings, all the facilities, all the money, all the alumni network. It doesn't give you a right to win things, but it does raise the expectation level.
And there's nothing wrong with doing all that. And that's where a lot of the national people miss on A&M. They think, what business, why is that, A&M thinks they're entitled to this because they're going and trying to get it. But they don't say anything about Lane Kiffin and them bragging openly about the NIL and the Portal King and all that. They don't say anything about other programs that have gone all in. They don't say anything about Texas and what they're doing monetarily. And they never hear a peep about it. And they're not doing anything wrong. But it's like USC goes and rips Lane Kiffin from Oklahoma, and it's okay. But A&M rips Jimbo Fisher from Florida State. And what right does A&M, who does A&M think they are? So that part of it, the national perception of it is that there's this entitlement. But no, it's called trying to get there and doing everything in your power to get there. And then you hand it to a head coach and you go, now you got to get us there. It's not easy. A lot of coaches have come through that haven't gotten it done. It's not easy. Mike Elko's the next in line. And the thing about Elko that gives me hope, among other things, but one of the real things is he doesn't do a lot of complaining about this place, but he also knows all the great things that this job provides, but also from his first time here and already been here over a year, he also understands, without it being like where we can and need to get better at Texas A&M football, Texas A&M athletics, the entire process here. But he doesn't use it as it's not like talked about as an excuse. It is, we got all of this, we should win. And then these are the areas where if we keep getting better, we will win.
All right.
His outlook towards it is really good.
Up against the break, come back, short segment to close the show. We're probably going to go long. Got to talk basketball. Billy wants to talk about the schedule. Got to give away pizza. All that more as we close the show on TexAgs Live on a Friday morning. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. All right. Going to be a quick closing segment of the show. If you're with us on YouTube, we're going to go a little bit long, probably as Billy wants to get into some schedule stuff. Or you want to do hoops right now first? We got
Sure. You got a big time game.
Right. Let's give away pizza. 979-693-1150. Hook you up with your choice of a dozen pepperoni rolls or one large topping pizza from Double Dave's, serving Aggieland since 1984. Caller number 12, 979-693-1150. The pizza is yours. All right. Those are coming back. There's a guy at the gym that wears one.
Maybe I should wear this into Golds today.
Well, maybe it'll get you more focused on your workouts than you have been.
Probably a distraction. I'm looking at, you got Purdue this weekend, right? I'm just looking at Lenardi. 1 seeds, Auburn, Tennessee. 2 seed, Alabama, Kentucky. 3 seed, Florida, Oregon, Purdue. 4 seed, A&M. 7 opponents, only one of which you've played so far as a top 3 seed right now in the
I need you to
NCAA
take
tournament.
that hat off. I can't.
Including, well, we'll do a whole nother segment in a minute. So the schedule's brutal. It's going to remain brutal. Get them where you can. And if they can go win a road game, even though it's not technically, but if you go win a road game at Purdue, that's going to go such a long way. And if the Aggies...
You're getting what you want. Go ahead. Pull it down now.
If the Aggies end up 3-1 against the Big Ten, man, that's going to go such a long way later when they, when seeding day comes. Because that league, as we know, is probably second this year to the SEC.
It's a huge opportunity, but I don't think it's a season changer either way with a win or loss because of what the league looks like now.
Playing the game helps you.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful place to be. It's where you can't be in college football. It's a beautiful place to be where you can go play a game. Playing it helps your resume. Winning it could be a massive boost when the selection committee starts deciding later on in the year. Because it's going to be really hard, I think, to disseminate and discern through the SEC teams. Because I think there's going to be a ton of them between like 8-10 and 10-8. Honestly, like I think that 2-game stretch, I think you might see about a half dozen teams or more. And as you're sorting through that and trying to say,
if you're listening to us on radio, we're going to continue on YouTube, but Louis Bellino on the other side of this radio break.
So, yeah, I mean, I think as you're looking through that, like, are we still going?
Yeah.
So when they look at the resume, man, Texas A&M strength of schedule, the opponents. But I'm just saying, you have a chance to go 3-1 against the Big Ten. Wins over Rutgers, Ohio State.
John Pugliese thinks Oregon's one of the best teams in the country.
Well, and here's the deal. If that's true, and you look at Texas A&M, they played most of that game without Solo, and they still should have. They really let that game get away.
It was one of those spells where they went through like 6 minutes.
They
and not
really
scored.
let it get away from them, and that 10-point loss wasn't that. I mean, I think it was within 2 or 3 in the final minute, and then you foul. If they are one of the best teams in the country, A&M is pretty damn good. And you look at the wins the Aggies have. And, Brauninger, if they get through a non-conference, forget where these teams end up. Let me just tell you the names, right? If you get through a non-conference schedule and you've beaten Texas Tech, Creighton, Ohio State,
bless you.
Thank you. Texas Tech, Creighton, Ohio State, and Purdue. That doesn't even count Rutgers. Who knows what they'll end up doing? But just think of what those teams have done in college basketball in the last, 5, 10, 15 years. All of them. So, hell yeah, that's an incredible non-conference win-loss record considering who you played and especially who you would have beaten. So this Purdue game, while it doesn't hurt them if they lose it, I think there's a ton to be gained if they can go up there and win. Not just that, but even mentally to roll into conference play with those skins on the wall.
If you go 8-2 in this non-conference, you've got 2 more not kind of cupcakes.
They should be 11-2 if they beat Purdue.
Then yeah, I mean 8-10 might get you in.
No.
RPI,
no, you don't have to even beat Purdue. And 8-10 will get this conference. What they're doing right now.
So you would think an overall record with that 18 wins.
Brauninger, there've been Big 12 teams that have gotten in at 7-11. Okay. When the Big 12 was the conference of, Yeah, I mean, they've gotten in at 7-11. So absolutely, A&M. I mean, not just A&M, but I think almost any SEC team that they're talking about at least 10 getting in right now. Any SEC team at 8 and 10, barring just if there's a program out there that played no one in the non-conference, or if it's a team, and I don't know who's out there that suffered bad losses in the SEC in the non-conference and then went 8 and 10, but like almost anyone that got to that point will get in. So your question would be like 7 and 11. You go like 11 and 7 in this league with let's say even if they lost to Purdue, if they lose to Purdue and go 10 and 3 in the non-conference and went 11 and 7 in this league,
11 and 7, yeah,
you're still a top 4 seed.
Yeah,
but
it reminds me
100%.
The depth of the league. It's like baseball or softball-esque this year. Like it's just.
John Calipari said that the other night. Arkansas beat Michigan, who's ranked, I think they were 12 or 14,
11,
whatever they were. They beat them in the Jimmy V Classic, and Cal said, they're saying that the league this year is like SEC baseball. He said that, and it is like it's better than it is in football. It actually for this year. But it is just like SEC baseball. It's a better league compared to other leagues than football is. I'd say baseball and softball in the SEC, it's just a whole nother level of competitive. And I think basketball this year might be like softball where, not softball, like every team gets in and then you just added like the number 1 and number 3 program in the country in Texas and OU. But last year, counting those two, is like, I don't know if it would have been like 14 out of 16 were in the tournament. And that's where baseball typically is,
Yeah.
And I think basketball will be there this year too. I think you'll see double-digit teams get into the dance.
You got any kind of feel for tomorrow?
No, look, Purdue numbers-wise is really good. I look at their schedule and results. They're not the team they were last year with
no
Edey,
national player of the
obviously.
year. Yeah,
that just changes the entire game you have to play against them. But Matt Painter's an elite coach. That is an elite program. A couple of years ago, what they do? They knocked out a favored Texas team in the tournament. They
went to the final last year.
Year in and year out. Even before Zach Edey, they've knocked A&M out of the tournament before. This thing's been going on up there for a long time. And when I was a kid, it was Gene Cady. But Matt Painter, he's beaten Mark Turgeon in the tournament without Robbie Hummel back in the day, keeping A&M in overtime out of the Sweet 16. Like this dude's been doing it forever. A coach is good when you watch him go gray, right? When you watch the coach go, I just saw that thing in the mirror. I was like, I'm still wearing that. When you watch the coach go.
People could say that about you following your career.
Yeah, that's right, because I've kicked ass for that long. I'm going to go color this up next week a little bit. Problem is when you color it, you go that you can get the hair like how more girls have gray hair than you think, and they can just dye it, and you never notice it.
Why don't you look at McKinley? She's young.
I didn't, but like the facial hair, if you try to mess with it, it gets too. You can't do any kind of like gentleness to it. There's no like light. You end up looking like just bizarre. You'll end up looking like John Chavis before you know it. He'd come in with like almost a green mustache at times. Just so dyed. It was just like it went past like brown, black, and then it becomes almost like this greenish, maybe a little red in there, and you
Christmas time.
You can't do it. Yeah.
Christmas
Schedule.
time. Oh yeah, you want to go to schedule?
Yeah.
What do you want to talk about? I thought you were on yesterday and talked about it.
No, I figured you'd have something to say about it.
No, I don't. I've been told that I pontificate too much.
That is true.
So
how about Aggie graduating? Congrats. Another one of the linemen that left. You got
so Wigman to
Samu to Baylor, Wigman to U of H.
Yep. Starting to see.
Matthew Wyckoff to U of H, Steve's protege.
It feels like, and I said in the first hour of the show, like it's been a little slower. And maybe just because A&M doesn't have the volume of kids that they need to go get, but it also seems across the country so far in the portal, people have been less likely to jump in on the first visit kind of thing?
A&M's visit list is outstanding. Their close rate has to be outstanding. And I think it will be. I mean, but
do you have anything on the schedule?
You got the money. You need to pay up. But the schedule, the only things that stand out to me, 4 road games in 5. What are you, in a hurry to go work out or something?
Yeah, I told you, I got covered 2 games. I'm meeting some people in Waco today. So I'm trying to get to the gym. And
I got lunch with one of your ball coaches, so at 1 o'clock, one of your buddies. So I will local baseball coach. So. And we also have a local football coach maybe coming to practice soon. One of our favorites, the doom and gloomer himself. But anyway,
great year. Bridgeland Bears.
So here we go.
Bridgeland alma mater.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yep. Nice. Just the 4 road SEC games in 5 is a little outlandish, but be a good football team and go win games on the road. I mean, that's what it's going to take. And by the way, that's not the most daunting 3 games in a row when you look at what Arkansas should be. LSU, we're still not – they're fighting some portal battles too. They're losing guys their fans don't want to lose. They're losing guys to the NFL. I think more to come. I don't think LSU is going to be a preseason top 10 team. It's not like this is Joe Burrow LSU or some of those Les Miles squads that lived in the top 10. So at Arkansas, at LSU, and then which the one you cap that 3-game stretch off with?
Arkansas, LSU, at
Florida. No,
it's up there.
Is it Auburn?
At Missouri.
Yeah, Missouri. And again, I don't think Missouri will be anything close to what they were this year. With I know they're going to get active in the portal, but I mean, just off the rip, some of the guys they're losing. So,
and the quarterback.
Look, if you're going to go 3 road games in a row out of the teams on that schedule, I mean, even if you could pick home and away and flip them, I think the only one you'd replace is you'd replace LSU with Mississippi State. That's about it. If I said pick your 3, I'm going to make you play 3 road games in a row off of this whole SEC schedule, who you want. That's how I'm picking them. It's still a very tough road schedule when you put in Notre Dame. But, man, getting South Carolina at home late in the year I think is really significant. It gives you a chance to return the favor for what they did to you this year. There's no reason they shouldn't be walking into an absolute hornet's nest at Kyle Field. And then my only thing and it's a good thing, all this smack I talked about Texas this year not playing and it was more about it was their first year in the SEC, but all this stuff I talked about Texas not playing a road game until X, and then their only road game was in Nashville against Vandy, which is the least intimidating home field advantage in this conference, until X date, really until they came to Kyle Field or maybe went to Fayetteville, a couple weeks left in the season. That's going to be true for A&M next year. So I'll take it. I'll take it. And if the Aggies are doing what Texas...
I just don't like the one conference, the final 50 days of the season.
Well, for the fans, it sucks. Yeah. My point, though, is if you're going to ramp up... And look, A&M was in the conversation pretty much all year this year, right up until the final game for an SEC title berth, okay? Take advantage of that schedule. Go beat Notre Dame and have people complaining about you this year. They haven't been tested on the road. They've only played one SEC, or they hadn't played an SEC road game through 8 weeks, or whatever. Okay, it's fine. And you know what? If they were still playing in Jerry World, which nobody wants, we could have stretched that out even further. There would have been a whole nother. So anyway, the schedule is, and there's very little to complain about other than from a fan enjoyment perspective. But I think in terms of the capability of winning, I think it's very doable. Some schools can't say that today. A&M can say that, so you're in a good place. And even in that 3-game road stretch, what I forgot to mention is you also have a bye in there too.
Mm-hmm. All right, Luke. Have a good weekend, Nick. Thanks for producing the show. We'll see you guys on Monday.